welcome to our economic forum for the winter of 2021. And also, welcome to our download from Abundance 360 for those of you who are daring enough to stay with us after our quick economic forum. So I'm sure you're all just getting over celebrating Groundhog Day, because I know it's a massive celebration in America. We were just in Punxsutawney. I wasn't. I just watched the movie Groundhog Day yesterday. And I think that Punxsutawney Phil saw his shadow, so 6 more weeks of winter, which is good because in Wisconsin, it's supposed to snow tomorrow. Also of note, we have the most snow on the ground in Wisconsin since 10 years ago. So kind of a new nice thing to say. And actually with the snow we might have tomorrow, maybe we'll hit a record. We'll find out. But we've had quite a bit of snow in the month of January. So wherever you are, if you're here, you know that. If you're in Florida, you can only laugh at us. At any rate, I just want to welcome you to the program and to the forum. We'll have 2 separate sections. The first is going to be economic and some of the housekeeping items that we normally will do. And the second portion, we'll give you a little bit of a break. We'll stand up and do some calisthenics and some gymnastics just to get the energy up and talk about technology and what's coming at us. Very, very exciting things are. So one of the first things I want to do is actually, let's open it up and have all of our Gentian team on the screen here. I want to make sure that we're all here and available, and I want to introduce everybody to you if we can. So first of all, I'm going to ask each one of you to wave your hand. Lisa? How about Mike? Awesome. Angie? I'm going to have Julie. Awesome. How about Peter? Ken? Zach? Ashley? Who's that guy there? Ryan, new member of our team. There you go. Awesome. Thank you, Ryan. Let's also then have Jenny and Kristen. Awesome. I want to have them all here because this is the team that serves you. This is a team that is set together. This is our plan to make sure we're serving you into the future, even beyond my next 50 years in the business. So I want to make sure they're all here to help you after I retire 50 or 60 years from now. So I just want to make sure you know them. They're awesome. I wanted to introduce them and just have them say hi. So thank you very much. What I'll do now is I want to pass it over to Ashley to start with some of the housekeeping.
Thank you, Chris, and welcome everyone. I am going to, sorry, I have a technical difficulty here. Well, I'm just going to start off by saying welcome to the Winter Forum, and thank you again for joining us. A couple of the items that we'll be touching on at today's agenda items include the Gentian update, so you'll hear a little bit about what's happening at Gentian, some market update and market corrections information. We'll talk about politics and investment decisions regarding those politics, as well as the technology and innovation section, which I know you all can't wait to hear about, as well as our team on this end also. Obviously, today is an important date. So number 1, thank you for joining us at our Winter Forum. And the next date to just consider and keep an eye out on, and tax documents also coming in the mail. So just a reminder that Thursday, April the 15th is the 2020 tax return deadline without filing an extension that has not been extended during or any information that we have currently. So just remember that April 15th is once again tax time. Our next Wednesday event is going to be held on Wednesday, February 24th. Hopefully you have seen our Gentian monthly bulletin, which lists out all those days and times and a very easy access link that you can click on and register. So if you have not been participating in those, we welcome you to join us and hope that you'll be on our next session. Something that you may have seen recently, and it's kind of trending in regards to QR codes. So it looks something like this. You'll see them on grocery stores, flyers in the mail, things that you get and that you see all over. So I just wanted to teach you guys a little bit about those, just because you probably will see some of these things coming from us on our end. We're trying to get some surveys out there to get some more information and input from you all, and to help us obviously improve upon the things that we offer currently. So just so you all know, here's an option. You can hold up your smartphone and device. You're going to see an email from our Gentian team after this Winter Forum, and there's going to be a survey attached. So you can hold up your smart device if you have your camera open, And if you see that QR code, you can hold your phone up again and it will automatically depict the surveymonkey.com. That is the link that will have that survey in it. So again, hold up your phone with the camera setting on and it will take you directly to that link if you click on that website QR code. Here's what the Gentian forum will look like, just a sneak peek at that. It will have a wood grain background and some questions for you to fill out. Quick 9-question survey, so we really do appreciate your time and input on those from now and going forward. As just a reminder, I know you've seen this a few times, but our Gentian YouTube page is a place that you can find all of our recent videos. So all those bi-weekly updates that you hear, our Gentian message come across on, as well as our winter forum videos and any other special offerings that we have in store. Our health and wealth series is going to be coming this year again also, so we look forward to having those recordings available on here also. So just a reminder to subscribe, and you'll automatically get updates to your email that you have subscribed with for the Gentian updates. Today's presenters, of course, is Chris Doty, who welcomed us all. He is a certified financial planner, along with Ken Flannery from our office and Zach DeBure. So I'm going to just touch on a couple of accolade things that we have received again in the 2021 year. I believe this is year 4 or 5 of the 2021 Raymond James Chairman's Council. This is the highest honor at Raymond James that we can, thankfully to you, receive. And so we just want to celebrate that and share that with you, as well as the Financial Times. So Chris Doty has once again been put on the top 400 list for financial advisors throughout the country. And again, Chris couldn't do it, we couldn't do it without the support and appreciation that you guys all shared with us. So thank you to you for being a huge contributor to that. And without further ado, I present Chris, Ken, and Zach for our winter forum. So thank you all.
Well, thank you, Ashley. We appreciate the announcements, and I appreciate you all being here today. A couple of things I want to run through just to begin with. As you know, this is time of our program to pull out your Gentian journal and to go big. So pull out your pen, pull out your journal. I want to see, and I want you guys to say how many gratitude entries you have. It's probably hundreds. Maybe this is your second book. I'm not sure. But go ahead and take 60 seconds. I'll be quiet and write down something you're grateful for today. It can be over the last 90 days if that makes it easier, but I'm sure you can also pick something today. All right. Well, I want to thank you tremendously for going through that exercise, but I want to share mine first. First and foremost, I want to go through and thank each one of you for being here today. I'm grateful for that. I'm also grateful for the weather. It's a beautiful, sunny day here in Wisconsin. We love that. It's awesome to see. The one thing I want to also tell you too is I'm grateful for playing in the snow. We got to play in the snow this weekend, which was awesome. The snow is now so deep, it comes up to about mid-knee level or higher. So our neighbor's dog pounces like a bunny through the snow. It's one of the funniest things I've seen. And then also, I want to also show my gratitude for Groundhog Day. Punxsutawney has a job. It's simply once a year, but Punxsutawney Phil comes out and he does it every single year without complaining. So we'll have to give a big hand to Punxsutawney Phil and all the other groundhogs that help us on Groundhog Day, which was yesterday. So how about yourself, Ken? How about yourself? How about your gratitude?
My gratitude is listening to all of you, and right now I'm thankful and grateful for the frontline healthcare workers right now who got the vaccine shots, also who are administering a lot of the shots to you right now. on most of the calls I'm on with you right now, you're receiving the vaccine shots. Some are first shots. Some are you on your second shot already. Some are already completely vaccinated already. So I'm just grateful for the opportunity that you guys have to be safe and healthy and continue on to be there for your families. And also snow and skiing, but most importantly, the health of us and our nation is really paramount.
Awesome. How about yourself, Zach? Thank you, Ken.
Thank you, Chris. As most of you guys know from hearing in the past as well, 3 years ago on Monday, my first day at Gentian was at Blue Mountain Country Club listening to the first Winter Forum. So the Winter Forum with the technology combined is extremely special for me for that reason. I can't believe it's been 3 years already. This week has just been filled with gratitude to be part of this team. I love coming to work every single day, which is one of the greatest gifts I've ever received, to be able to talk with each of you, to be with this team here, and also an extreme amount of gratitude for the people that actually referred me to Gentian. So I wasn't looking, wasn't applying, and a long-term client of Gentian's and a family friend of mine connected us. So I'm extremely grateful for them and honored and humbled to be part of this team.
Awesome. And the pleasure is all ours as well, Zach. Thank you. You bring great energy to us, grit, determination, and inspiration. So thank you. We appreciate that as well. So what we're going to do today is once we go through gratitude, I enjoy that part of the equation. What I really want to do, though, is talk about what we're hearing from you. I've got a few things I've written down, and also I just want to bring these to you in some in a written format, and I'm going to speak them as well. But I think what's really interesting today is we have this 24-hour news cycle, and it's interesting to watch. It's complete with some guru, maybe Gendelot Grantham, Mohammed El-Arain, or somebody you've never heard of, saying that something to the effect of how equities are historically overvalued. Okay, let me ask you a question. Do you guys remember what happened a month or two from now last year? February marks the month where we learned about this novel coronavirus, right? And oh my gosh, what is that? And then we had one of the biggest, quickest corrections we've ever seen. So when you look at it, and you think of what happened last year, the perspective is, well, of course, earnings got hit dramatically, but prices are about where they were. So what's interesting here, and I think the earnings were crushed during that pandemic. And I think if it dropped 30 or 40% in earnings or more, you're going to see valuations be quite high. Now, remember, when you look at it, it's kind of like saying, it's sunny outside, it's really never going to get dark again. Or, there's snow on the ground here, it's never going to be summer again. So it's looking to what's happening right now as the only thing that's happening. What we look at, though, is as the market does this too, it looks ahead to the earnings that will be. So it's anticipating that we come out of this with a bunch of demand that we haven't seen before and some fundamental strong changes. The PE for the market is high right now. There's no doubt about it if you're looking at an absolute today's terms. But we haven't seen equities undervalued to themselves so much, but undervalued relative to the interest rates that are out there. So when interest rates were 0.5, they were wildly undervalued because the market was alone yielding 1.8% or so, or something in that range. At 1% now, the Treasury is at, the 10-year Treasury is around that area. But we're starting to see maybe it's a little bit less undervalued to Treasuries, but you have to look at the relative options that are out there. So when you look at it, you have to put that in perspective. And I say today's valuations may indeed have turned out to be ahead of themselves. Okay, so, or not. Now remember that. They may have turned out to be ahead of themselves or not. We have no idea. The market may be discounting some sort of barn burner recovery that we mere mortals have really never seen or not. This is very important. Valuation's never really been, is not now, and never will be a reliable market timing tool. Did you hear that? Valuation isn't, never has been, never will be a reliable timing tool, nor will anything else. So why am I saying this to you? Because we're hearing a lot of questions. You're getting a lot of friends out there talking about markets and overvaluations. And, every once in a while we'll get somebody calling in, actually quite often, it'll be one of the conversations that we have with you. If indeed valuations prove to be stretched excessively, the market should at some point correct. Unless, of course, it doesn't. It also could just fall into some sort of trading range. For those of you who knew me between 2013 and 14, 2012, we had a trading range. Corrections occur in 2 or 3 different ways. One is they drop dramatically, very quickly, or they tend to move in a trading range while earnings tend to catch up. And that's what often happens. And let's assume that for some reason, the valuation for some reason whatsoever, or some other input is way too high. We are going to have a correction. Ken, Zach, ourselves have taught you this time and time again. If you go to JP Morgan's Guide to the Markets, which Ken's going to bring up a bit later, page 18, the average annual inter-year correction is about 14.3%, despite a long-term 10% return. So you look at that, and really, despite volatility, the markets are full of return, kind of ignoring dividends, have been positive in 31 of the intervening 41 years, back to 1980. I'd also remind you that the S&P came into 1980 at around 108. Mark that. The S&P came into 1980 at 108. Where were you in 1980? Probably working in your first 10, 12 years of a job. That's 40 years ago. Now, in 2020, the S&P came out at 3756, some 37 times higher, not talking about dividends being reinvested. Thus, over the 4 decades, I guess the average annual 14% drop or so really didn't amount to much. It didn't have a whole lot of lasting impact, did it? But on average, it happened every year. It happened around 30 or 40 times during that. So I want to give you an idea. Is a correction coming? Yes. When? We don't know. How much? We don't know. Once it's here, once we're past it, we'll know. The key with us is we know what we'll do as we go forward. And this is an important portion because I think the thing that we tend to find that trips most investors, and some people would call it weak-minded people, get bashed by the media to go, yes, it's overvalued. Every one of your friends is saying it too. That can happen. We can all have a weak moment and go, I want to call my advisor and say, I think it's time for me to lighten up or sell some. We over time have found that our positions, what we have is designed to make it through times like this, the plan especially through times like this, and through times when corrections hit. So at any rate, no one can predict when a correction will begin, nor where it'll bottom. And this implies, among other things, that you can be absolutely right that a correction is coming, but you can lose money trying to time it. So this is something we see. Despite my experience and advice, I have on occasion had clients who will prove and reprove this to me. They'll call in against our will. They'll want to sell something because they believe something's going to happen economically or politically. And I have yet to find a case where I've had a client come out better because of it. I've done this for 25 years. So this has just been my experience. I want to give that to you. Our job is to help you with this, but ultimately we know it's your money. We want to make sure we offer you the perspective of history, that corrections have temporarily occurred. In the last 100 years, they haven't been a correction that somebody's been right about, and it's stayed down for that 100 years, right? So we're going to give you a sheet. We've updated our sheet as well on corrections. We'll be sending that out to you with all corrections basically back for the last 100 years. We're going to send that piece out to you with something we have in both our newsletter or just a piece to you. So look for that in an email from our team as well. What's interesting is that getting out of a correction, getting out before a market corrects, is really only half strategy at best. So people think, I'm going to get out. It's a half strategy at best, because then you have to get back in. Peter Lynch, we told you, has told us that far more money has been lost anticipating and taking actions about corrections than has ever been lost in corrections themselves. That's Peter Lynch. And I don't suppose it matters much about the madness of getting out before the correction, but a lot of people here, when you look at reinvesting dividends, those reinvesting dividends scoop up bargains. Our rebalancing that you're about to go through scoops up bargains. Things that aren't doing well, it buys. Things that did really well, it sells. It's a forced buy low, sell high. That's where discipline, faith, and patience is one of the three probably most important things that you can have in a strategy. I know I've talked about it before. Many of you have heard it, but I want to say this is coming up a lot right now. And I wanted to make sure I reached out to you as well. We don't know which way the markets will go in the short term. Historically, though, we've seen them in the long term, and we're prepared. So I want to just give that to you, some of my perspective. The boys will cover the rest today. I'll be color commentating as we go through, but Ken and Zach are really going to run through the economic forum here so I can preserve my energy to show you what's happening technology as we move forward. But with that, I'll turn it over to you guys.
Hey, thank you very much, Chris. Appreciate it. It's great to be here with all of you as usual. Questions we're hearing from you as we kick off the economic portion of the program. And like Chris mentioned, we'll take a break and then we'll come back with the innovation that Chris has learned about and has been studying for years and years and years, and how it can impact your lives and what to be aware of and what to be looking out for as well. So, but really questions we're hearing from you, Chris really covered a few of these here. How will the election impact the market and my plan? So far, they haven't. And that's been a surprise to many of us here. But, not so much us, because we understand that, separating politics and your investment plan is a very important thing to do. But so far, the markets have surprised some of you out there, depending on, how you look at things and your political views as well. Is the market too high? It's a great question. Chris touched on it from a PE valuation standpoint. When we look at this, I'll use my experience coming into the business as a retirement planner for all of you. In 2004, basically, the Dow Jones was around 10,000. And here we are almost at 31,000. So is the market too high? Temporarily, maybe, maybe not. But historically, markets want to go higher over time. That's something really, really important to keep in mind. I was talking to a client yesterday, and she's 58 and she's going to be 62 pretty soon. And she thinks in her mind she has 4 years before she's going to start using her money. And so her time frame is 4 years. We have to reshape that thought. We have to reshape that to 35 years. Because just because if you start drawing on your investments at 62 or 65, whatever your scenario is, there is 20 to 25 to 30. Maybe Chris will even talk about 50 or 60 years ahead of you for retirement as well. So should I move my money out of the markets? The short answer is no, don't do that. As evidenced by our clients have proved to us that those who have done that, very, very, very few of them, have never had a positive outcome because of that. So don't do that. What should I be doing with my cash? You should be looking at your overall financial plan to see, do you have adequate amount of emergency money or rainy day funds, whatever you like to call them, in cash, in money markets? If you do, if you have money beyond that, that's when you're going to want to start to consider doing something with it. CDs aren't paying that much right now, and you have to get yourself into a situation where you're in them for a year or 3 years or a 5 year, even 7 years to get maybe 1.5%. That is not something that most likely will result in a good situation there. So what should you be doing with your cash? Talk to us. If you feel like you are in a good situation, your cash surplus is building, talk to us. Call us during a review, and we'll walk you through some of the options. There's 3 or 4 options that we can easily talk you through and what to do with your cash there. What's happening with these short squeezes? You've seen it all over the news. GameStop is on the news right now. There's also hedge funds on the news as well. What's happening there? It's exactly the opposite pretty much of what we do. We buy something at a low point hoping to sell it at a high point. Some of these hedge fund managers that are out there are doing the exact opposite. It's called a short sale. And they're actually selling the security before they even buy it back. So for example, if a stock is trading at 10, some of these hedge fund managers that are shorting stocks, they want the price to go to 2. They want it to go down. So they sell it at 10 and they buy it back at 2. That's how they make their money. Well, you've seen kind of some users on Reddit, it sounds like, that have kind of gone against that and basically pushed the stock price up by buying it a lot. That puts pressure and a squeeze on a short sale on some of these hedge fund managers, because the only way that they can get out of their position is to buy it back. And they were hoping for to buy it back at a smaller price, yet they have to buy it back at a higher price. So there's quite a bit of money being lost and made, with GameStop, and it's really an exploitation of the market basically. So, we'll see what happens with that, and we'll see what comes out of that. So, whether there's legal happenings or not, we're not quite sure there, but we will follow that just as much as you'll be following that as well. So, the next one here is, when should my kids come see you? They already have, and we thank you for that. We really, truly thank you for the introductions to your friends, your children, your grandkids are even coming to see us now. People, coworkers, thank you for that. Your trust really in us is something we cherish and we'll never lose sight of. And we're here to guide you and your family in whatever case it needs to be. So the last one here is, can I afford to retire? That is a case-by-case scenario. That is a very good question. We will help you through that. I've helped a couple clients recently, and they said they wanted me to say their names, not their last names, just their first names. But we've had Terry retired recently. Thank you, Terry. Also, Bonnie, you're right behind Terry. Jerry, Steve recently, Barb recently. So we had 4 or 5 retirees in the last month or so retire with us. So we're glad to be on the journey with you. And if you're not quite retired with us yet, we will get you in a position to have you realize that dream for yourself. And we will work with you for the idea of you retiring at some point in time as well. It's very exciting for us to do that with you as well. So market updates here is the market corrections. Now this is one we've seen this one in 2020. This is really the story here. They are swift and visceral, as evidenced by 2020. They come without warning, as evidenced by 2020. Their length of stay is unknown. They are not pleasant when they are around. Some would say that sounds like my in-laws, by the way. But that really is. I mean, look at last year. They are swift and visceral. March and April, there was a 34% correction in 33 days. That is swift and visceral. They leave scars on those who react poorly. Those who got out of the market during that are absolutely kicking themselves right now because they did not experience the rebound like all of you experienced the rebound. And last year for returns was very, very good. As far as when we're doing reviews with you, they're very, very good. And a lot of you are surprised by them. So market corrections are very necessary. The annual end of the world. This is a good one here. I want to bring this one up. This one was what Chris was talking about before, is that the intra-year drop is averaging right around 14%. So what does that mean? So what you're looking at on this chart right now is the green bars are where the markets ended up during that year. Okay, so this goes all the way back from 1980 to 2020 on the right-hand side here. And the red dot, we call this the measles chart, if you will. The red dot basically is the volatility throughout the year. Okay, so we saw in 2020 over to the right of the chart here that the markets actually ended up around 16%. But throughout the year at some point in time, which we know was March of 2020, the markets were down 34%. That was in that 1 month. Massive volatility, we saw that. The 34%, going back into the years to 2008, down 49%. The 2000s, the 30% and 34%. Those are fear-driven markets. To see that, a lot of people are waiting for that big drop to happen again. Most likely it won't, because something has to happen that hasn't happened before. That's a very fear-driven type of market. So what's normalized is that intra-year. Some of these in the middle here are very normalized. We need to get used to that volatility again. It's been good. It's been good. This year 2020 ended up very good. So we need to get used to some of that volatility again because it may creep back into our lives when it comes to investing. So, but your portfolio can withstand all of that. And so that's really the annual end of the world. So don't freak out. Don't think the world is going to end tomorrow because it's not. Circumstances will be different in 2021. We don't know what the headlines will be, but the annual end of the world is not occurring next year or this year. So the stock market since the 1900s, again, it has a very upward trend. Historically, this is from JP Morgan. They do a great job. Again, stay focused. Stay focused on your long-term plan. Stay focused on the 10-year horizon, the 15-year horizon, the 20-year horizon. That's what's going to make you a great investor. I'm going to hand it over to Zach here. He's going to touch on some of the investor emotions that we go through when we are investing.
Thank you, Ken. Really appreciate it. And just want to touch on a few reminders. And as we've talked about, and as Chris mentioned perfectly in the beginning, is it's really about managing our behavior over time. And one of the first steps to managing behavior in markets with our money or just in life in general is just becoming aware of how we're feeling. And this is just a great chart to show during times, according to the market, of how we feel. When things are going really, really well, we have that thrill, that euphoric feeling. We have a March of last year with a 30% correction, one of the quickest corrections since World War II. And we start to feel these anxieties, fears. Is my retirement okay? Is everything okay? And that's completely normal. To have these feelings and emotions as you go through is completely normal, but the first step is being aware of them. And that's what we're here for as well. It's just to help you become aware of them. And exactly here, investor return equals investor behavior plus performance of investment. And when we went back and looked, Russell Investments has a great study, and managing behavior is actually the #1 factor in return over time. There was about a 4.8 4.81% added return of having an advisor, and over 2% of that was just in managing behavior over time. So it's just a great reminder. It's behavior, not the day-to-day markets, not the different things we hear every single day. There's always going to be that next something. In 2018, it was North Korea. Next, it was China trade wars. Now it's GameStop. There's always going to be that next something that scares us, and it's all about managing that behavior over time. We talked about politics a lot with you guys. You guys get it every single day on all of the different news stations, all of the different things we have. So we're not going to go into great detail on it, but just a quick timeless reminders as far as politics and investing goes. And the last chart there, CNN, just a funny one when we look at it. Constantly negative news, focus on extremes. Just be aware of where your information is coming from over time and what it's potentially trying to do with your mind. It's trying to scare you, get you to click, get you to watch more. This is a great one. It's kind of hard to see on your screen, but it's just what is the different media elements showing us? Which one is leaning in the middle? Which one is leaning left? Which one is leaning right? Just be very careful of what you're intaking as far as information, and just be aware of what they're trying to do. The best thing we can do is probably not watch any of them. Focus on what's really important in life, our family, what really matters most. Again, we're going to just roll through these really quick. We went through these in great detail back in November leading into the election, but we often hear on both sides. In 2 days' time, we can hear the same exact argument for the Republican side, the conservative side, and also the Democratic side for the same reason why we should invest or should not invest. And over time, what we found is that it doesn't really matter who's in office at those times. We never want to sacrifice our long-term plans based off of personal beliefs, especially when it comes to politics. This is a great one, just because we always hear different things as far as when is the market more volatile, or leading up to an election, it's more volatile, or post-election, it's more volatile. If we're looking at just volatility of the S&P 500 index over time, the index volatility was 15.7%. Again, this is just a measure to measure volatility up and down. 100 days before an election, 100 days after, actually a little less volatility than normal. And also no difference before and after the election. I'm excited about this one today. As you guys know that are on our webinars, I usually handle the markets. Ken usually jumps into the financial planning, and today I get a chance to talk about the financial planning. So very excited. Ken will interject with a couple of ideas. But as you guys remember, in 2020, a lot of things changed. A lot of things came out, both in our personal lives with coronavirus and also with our finances. One of those very big ones that we talked about a lot last year and caused a ton of planning for us last year was the CARES Act. This was in response to the coronavirus itself. So the CARES Act, Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, was for 2020 only. Now this got very confusing because it intertwined at exactly the same time as something called the Secure Act, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But as a reminder, the CARES Act was for 2020 only. There may be additional things coming out as far as economic relief with the new administration. We are yet to see what that will be, but we're keeping a close eye on that for you and how it affects you. But in 2020, as a reminder, the CARES Act waived required minimum distributions for 2020. That included from your IRAs, inherited IRAs, and potentially company plans if it applied as well. Just as a reminder, one of the elements of the CARES Act was a coronavirus-related distribution. If you were affected by the coronavirus and needed to get money, you could take up to $100,000 from an IRA and not have to have the penalty if you're under 59 and a half. And also along with that, you could spread the taxes over a couple of years, 1 to 3 years. So if you did that in 2020, just be sure to work with your accountant to make sure you're spreading those taxes properly and making smart decisions with that. So just as a reminder, if you did take a CRD, just to be aware of it and to really take a look back at what you did and work with your accountant.
Yeah, great job, Zach. Just to clarify, in 2021, this year right now, required minimum distributions are back in play, if you will. So we do need to take out the distributions, and many of you know what those are. During reviews, we'll be talking about them. Some have already called in and taken care of them. So they're back in play for 2021. Thank you, Zach.
All right, here's the Secure Act. So the CARES Act, 2020 mainly, pieces of it are potentially still ongoing, but the Secure Act is the one that is here to stay for now. So the Setting Every Community Up for Retirement Enhancement Act signed into a law December 20th, 2019, and it went into effect in 2020. There's a lot of elements of the Secure Act in general, but the main ones that apply to most of you: age limit eliminated for traditional IRA contributions. The RMD age was raised from 70 and a half to 72. And the required beginning date is delayed until April 1 of the following year that you reach 72. The really confusing part is QCDs, qualified charitable distributions, that we've done for a lot of you. That still remained at 70 and a half. So it didn't correlate along with required minimum distributions. It stayed at 70 and a half. So before we take required minimum distributions, we still have a chance to utilize qualified charitable distributions, which is directly giving money to a charity, to a church, directly from our IRA. And now the biggest one that we're putting a big element onto the newsletter on is the stretch IRA is now going to be replaced with the 10-year rule for a majority of beneficiaries. We're going to be going into more detail on that for the February newsletter. We really dove in to see and answer a lot of questions that we've had around that. Which is,
Zach and Ken, before we go any farther, let me ask a question. So I know that there is, and this is a question from some of our clients as well, in order to do an RMD or a QCD, is there a proper order to those occurring? Do I have to do one before the other if I have both available?
That is a great question, Chris. And it depends on each individual scenario, but if we have to take the QCD lowers our required minimum distribution, so we can take those at the same time. If we were to want to do a Roth conversion or any other financial planning opportunity, we have to satisfy the required minimum distribution first. So it is an excellent question, Chris. Really appreciate that question.
Thank you.
I'd like to touch on the last part on this slide here. The stretch IRAs were replaced with a 10-year rule. Now, this is for inherited IRAs that you inherited 2020 and beyond going forward now. So this is a 10-year rule. So how does this play out? Like, how does this, if you inherit an IRA, there's traditional IRAs, there's Roth IRAs. So a good strategy here, and again, it's a case-by-case scenario, but if you inherit a Roth IRA, there's a really good chance that you'd want to leave that inherited Roth IRA in there for all 10 years, because any growth we get on those it comes out tax-free. Even the earnings we earn on the Roth IRA is tax-free. Now, as far as a traditional IRA that we inherit, that's something we're going to want to work with your accountant with, because we're going to need to figure out how much we should be taking out. Do we take out 1/10 of the IRA basically every year to kind of stretch those distributions out from a tax standpoint? Do we need the money? That's also another factor in all this as well. But if there's a way to optimize it from a tax standpoint, that is really something we want to work with your accountant on as well. Now, any inherited IRAs pre-2020, here is something we are tracking for you internally for you, is that if you inherited an IRA in 2019 or before that, we're still using the IRS life expectancy tables for you on that. That's a calculation that happens every year. We are tracking that for you. We'll make sure that we let you know what the amount of money you have to take out. So we'll guide you on that, whether it's 2019 or post 2020. We'll definitely be your guide on that.
Yeah, thank you, Ken. And just as a reminder, 2020 was a very interesting year for planning and a ton of great planning opportunities that for a lot of you we were able to utilize. Just keep a close eye on your taxes for 2020. Potentially, if it applied to you, there was some tax harvesting, both gain or loss potentially. There was some great opportunities for Roth conversions if it applied to your scenario, and also for QCDs. So just as a reminder that 2020, there was a ton of opportunities for these plannings, and just to keep an eye out on your taxes and just to make sure that everything went according to plan.
Yeah, one piece on the QCD is great point there, Zach. On the annual summary that you receive from Raymond James on your IRAs, it will show your qualified charitable distributions that you did from your IRAs. It will show that. On your actual tax document, it does not show that. So it's really important for yourselves, and we try to do it as well, to communicate with your accountant to let them know that you did a qualified charitable distribution, because it doesn't show up on the actual tax form that you do get. Just wanted to bring that to your attention.
Thanks, Ken. What we're going to do as well is we've got a system here to send an actual document to you as well. So Peter will actually put those together, and our team will send you a document showing you the QCDs you did as well. Because here goes the IRS. They create a law and then don't give us any forms to report it. That's awfully nice for it, isn't it? It's awesome to see the IRS working in our favor. Make a tax law, you guys can deal with it yourselves. So, but we're going to take care of it. Just like Ken said for the brand new inherited IRAs, we're doing the same thing for qualified charitable distributions, just so that you have them, you have a copy of them. And also for those of you who've given us your CPA, we're going to send them to them as well.
Thank you, Chris. And we just want to show just the historical tax rates looking back. It's just a great reminder. And it's just to answer a question that we all have is, what are tax rates at? How do they compare to history? Are they high? Are they lower than previous? And that helps guide a lot of the decisions that we're trying to make for the future. If we think taxes are historically low and that taxes are going to increase, there's a lot of planning opportunities that we can utilize now to take advantage of that. And we hear a lot of different things with the new administration. Are they going to increase capital gains rates? Are they going to increase different tax brackets? The answer is potentially, and we're keeping a close eye on it and how it affects you. We don't know exactly what those answers are yet, but just looking at historical time frame, when we look back, both capital gains and both individual income tax rates are historically low from where they have been in the past.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Zach. And that really concludes our economic portion of the presentation today. Again, we are here for you. If you have any questions, big or small, email us, call us, reach out to us. We love helping you out. And there is no foolish question. We are here for you, and never feel like you're taking too much of our time, because we're here for you. We're here to guide you, and we love talking to you. So feel free to give us a call if you have any questions or emails.
Ken, you said there's no foolish question. Somebody had a question. How long does a groundhog live?
Well, there might be one foolish question.
Oh, okay. I just want to go along. But so some of the things too we're getting as well. We've had a lot of these questions. I know you guys. There's a ton of questions. We love to give you all the economic data. We read 85 pages of stuff just last week. We get some great stuff from Nick Murray this week. Really, when you're looking at what's going on, people have a lot of, you can't continue to just print money. You can't do this. Now, we are at a fairly high debt ratio compared to history. So those are interesting things to take a look at. You're going to see people talking about them. They're going to try to inflate their way out of them. They got a lot of ways they're going to try to address those. We'll talk more on our two next economic forum, but there's a lot going on with that. I've also had a couple of questions from both friends, clients, yourselves. If I've got, $200,000 or $300,000, I've just sold a home, I just inherited money, it's all sitting in cash right now. What should I do with it? Should I invest it for the long term, or should I put it all in right away? And really, it depends on each individual. So let me give you 2 or 3 scenarios. One scenario was one of my good clients' friends, my good client's daughters. She's 21, 22 years old, wanted to know, I've got some money, I'm going to need it next year in 12 months. That is not a scenario to invest it, because you have no idea what's going to happen in the 12 months. That's too short of a time frame. If you have 5, 10, 15, 25, 30 years, it's definitely time to invest. Because the question we always have is, when should I invest? Do you know what our answer is? Now. If it's for your long term, it's now. If it's for 1, 2, 3, 5 years, we might want to take a different look at that as well. Some people also say, okay, I've got a couple $100,000. Why don't I put half of it in now, and I'll spread the other half in over the next 12 or 18 months. There's a lot of strategies. We tend to be favorable on the now. You never know what's coming. You never know what will happen. There'll be corrections, but you do know long-term, historically, companies course correct, they change, they adapt, and they tend to be very, very good at that. So when economic challenges occur, it doesn't mean the company's necessarily going out of business. They adapt and move on. When taxes go up a little bit, we as humans adapt and move on. When companies have higher taxes, they adapt and move on. So it's not like a world we haven't been in before. Another couple of things that are happening that are propositions right now, and these have always been proposed, is right now there's a couple of ideas with giving tax credits, giving credits to your retirement plan, rather than giving you a tax deferral or pre-tax money you're able to put in. So instead of putting in pre-tax money to a 401k, you're just going to get a tax credit for money you put in an IRA or money that you also put into a 401k. Those are a couple of items that are really being pressed as well. And a lot of the tax increases they're talking about are if you're making $400,000 or more. That's the target. So for a lot of us, it's not necessarily the case, but that's what they're targeting, is those making $400,000 or more. So as we go through, if we're making $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, or the average retiree who's right around 50, probably 45 to 50,000 bucks, these are actually going to be designed to help them. That's what they believe. So at any rate, I just wanted to go through that on some of the tax stuff I've seen lately. I know there's way too much to go through, but let me ask you both, Ken and Zach, one more question. What is most important for me to be doing now? If you can give one kind of an idea, what's your single best thought just to give clients advice on right now? Say probably one of the best things to do is to watch for, or to do this, or to X, Y, or Z. Just any thoughts on those?
Yeah, I think the best thing you could be doing right now is really just keeping an eye on your overall plan. I really do. I mean, when it comes down to there's a lot of noise out there. There's a lot of things being said. Your neighbors, your friends. I have a friend down the street who was a client of ours who was opening up an E-Trade account. It's fine. He's going to play around with some stocks, right? So there's a confidence right now that exists because of what's happening in the market right now. Just be careful of that. Just keep your eyes on the prize, which is the long-term view of all this. Your money with Gentian, your money with us, we view as your core money. We really do. It's something that you can count on. It's consistent. And it's something that, if you stay the course, we'll be there for you. A lot of our clients right now have never had more money than they have right now. And why is that? It's staying the course. It really is. So just, I would say, keep your eyes on that. Keep your blinders on, if you will. You always see the horse racing. They always have their blinders on. Why? They want to look forward. That's where we want to look. Put your blinders on and look forward. That's probably the best advice I can give right now, Chris.
I think, Ken, a lot of that is because we're taking care of it for you. We're not giving you a ton of details in this because you don't need them. There's a ton of stuff going on. If you want to talk more about it, we'll talk more about it individually. So it's a great point. I want to make a statement. We've said this many years. You've heard it before. Do not confuse a bull market with brilliance. Do not confuse a bull market with brilliance. I've been there. When I started in 1994, I thought I was brilliant for a very short time, 3 or 4 or 5 years. And then the market corrected. So what you start to realize is bull markets are phenomenal and it's great, but don't confuse that with brilliance. One thing as well is there's a lot of clients here who have a play account. I want to define play. It's money that if you lost, it would make no difference in your life. Do not take your life savings and try to do short selling or something you've never done before. Those are crazy. If you've won the game, you don't need to. But if you have more money than you need for retirement, it's kind of fun for some clients to have a play account. Some of our clients have them here as well. So I just want to make sure you know that, but play really means money that you're not concerned that if it went away, you're still fine. So I just wanted to define it. Thank you very much, Ken. How about yourself, Zach?
Yeah, I think that is a great answer to the question. The only thing I would add is I love the psychology side of things and how we think, why we think them. So going back to the investor emotions and just human emotions, just be aware of our emotions. Where are they coming from? Why are they there? Is it because of the intake of information that I'm receiving? And also, most importantly, focus on what's most important to you. Your health, more than likely, your family, more than likely. It isn't necessarily the day-to-day market movements of certain things happening with individual companies and what's going on the internet, or even with politics. Focus on what's really important to you guys. Focus on your long-term plan, and we're here for you any way we can be.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. That's fantastic. I really appreciate the economic side of the equation. I know some of you as clients like a lot of that and really just hit that heavy with that. And our next one will be much heavier. We'll have all sorts of statistics. I've got stuff that I can't share necessarily. I can share the source and all. But if you look at some of the huge, we have a great private resource from a hedge fund that is more research than you could ever. I think it was 178 slides. I read, and it's proprietary to them, so I can't share that it's theirs, but I can share the sources they had. And if you look at it, this is interesting. This run in technology is different than 2000. The earnings have kept up with the price. So right now, say 37% of the economy of the S&P is based in technology. 36% of it is the earnings of technology as well. Where in 2000, it went up to 20-some%, but it was only 8 to 10% of the earnings of the S&P. We look at all sorts of statistics like that on a constant basis for you. But again, we give you what you need to know. And if you want more detail, we'll do some of the programs where there's more detail involved as well. So I appreciate that. Some of the economic discussions we could get into forever, but I love the behavior side of the equation. And what we might start doing is just going a deep dive on each one of these for 5 minutes into one subject. So deep dive, what is behavior? What is it? What are the biases? A deep dive into economic, a deep dive into QCDs, a deep dive into the Secure Act, and that way it just kind of keeps you updated with some of these different ideas as well. And we're also coming up with an idea. You can let us know this. Would you like us to make short little pieces that you could use where Zach or Ken or myself just record something on XYZ subject? So short selling, what is it? Boom, we send it out to you, you keep it. It's on our website. You know, what is it with QCDs? How do I work with that? Ken, what about the Secure Act? How about some planning ideas, Zach? So again, and offering some perspective by me, whichever. But we want to make sure that if you guys want those, we'll do more of those. So, well, thank you guys tremendously for the economic portion of the forum. We're going to do a transition right now. And that transition is going to be to the Abundance 360. I call it the Technology Download Forum. It's the portion here where I can overload you, but I've worked very, 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 very hard this year not to do it. So I'm working on a better way to download the technology. To many of you said it's super exciting. There's incredible stuff. I'm going to show you that here in just a bit. So we're going to give you probably a 2 or 3 minute break. For those of you who need to get up, get some coffee, go to the restroom, get your notepad, you know, because I know you're going to want to start to get your journal out and start writing all sorts of stuff down. Feel free to do so. But Peter will let us know. I'll let you know as well. But for those of you who would like to not go away, we're going to get up and stretch a little bit here. I'm going to just stretch here a little bit, stand up, keep the energy up. I'll move this up. So Peter Diamandis for the entire 4 days, he was dancing. He had music. He's got people jumping up and down. So if you want to get up and exercise a little bit, go ahead and do so. Stretch, move around a little bit. For those who need to go to the restroom, feel free. That'd be awesome. Matter of fact, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to unplug my computer here, and I'm going to show you. I know my wife will laugh at this probably, but again, I'm going to show you guys the bird cam. Doesn't exist yet, but I'm going to show you the bird cam. So I might scare them all away here, but you can see the bird cam. If you can see that, let me see. Yep. There's a bunch of birds that have been coming out. So thanks, Mike, for filling this. You can see deer have come by as well. I think I've scared all the birds away right now, but there's phenomenal cardinals. We've got some chickadees. We've got, actually, I saw a couple of bluebirds as well. And we haven't had any squirrels yet. So they haven't found it yet, but the birds and the deer have, which is kind of fun. So we'll kind of take you around there. While we're also waiting here, maybe I'll take you around what it looks like to be at Gentian on the outside. This might be kind of fun. You wonder what the snow looks like? Like this, very bright. And then here's what it is. There's all the snow and the furniture waiting for you guys to come and visit with us and have a great time. And here is the peril that exists over our head. If you guys can see that, there's icicles and snow like we've never seen on this thing. So again, some of the downsides, you will, of all the snow that we've had as well. But as you can see, this area over here is waiting. It's wired up. We're all getting ready for you guys to be able to come back and see each other in person. And I just wanted to show you some of the snow that we have here as well. It's kind of fun to see. And this is what it looks like. For anybody who really doesn't mind the snow, you can have a seat right here and wait outside the door. We got it all set up for you. And in here as well, you can also see there's Peter. Hi, Peter. And then the Christmas tree we still got behind him because we think that holidays should be here year round. So just wanted to show you a few of the different items here, show you what Gentian looks like while you're waiting. For those of you who had got up and stretched or went to the bathroom, you missed out on a great portion of what we were talking about. For those who didn't, you're just fine. You're just fine. How many minutes we got left, Peter? 1? All right, 1 minute left. 1 minute left, so you're going to stretch, you're going to dance, go ahead, do anything you can. Get yourselves all ready for these crazy ideas. We're going to start off with a question right away. And actually, what we'll just do while we're waiting here, we can have a couple minutes right by the fire. Okay, enough of that. How about by the bell? Those of you who didn't see it before, that's our Gentian bell. And you can see on the back, it actually has the school building. See that real close? Hey, that's some of you guys walking in, I think, right there. It's kind of funny. It actually has the flower pots and everything. Kind of fun. Yeah. All right. Hopefully that's enough break right now. We're going to kind of share what we have now for our screen. So Peter and I are going to be working together. This is on the innovation portion. What I want to do, though, is I want to start this out with a bit of energy. I want to ask you a question. And first thing let's do, I'm going to probably throw this to a poll, right, Peter? But I want to ask you a question. Are you afraid? Are you excited about the future? It's a really good question, but I actually want you to go into the poll. I'd like you to answer that. Are you afraid or excited about the future? Yeah. Awesome. It's looking right now. 90%, 91%. Excellent. We've got like probably over half the people have voted already. Excellent. We're at about 93%. So we got 42 have voted. Excellent. We're getting high. So it looks like we're going to lock in right there. So here's what we have. 90% of you right now, and you can share results if you'd like, Peter. 90% of you are excited about the future. 5 of the 42 are afraid. I'm going to tell you, you're both right. You're both right. This is an important one because I love this portion. Oftentimes technology is looked at as a Pollyanna, right? Oh, it's going to solve everything. But as we've seen it, there's another side to it as well. So thank you, Peter. Thanks for the poll. Thank you guys also for participating as well. It's awesome to see you guys voting and seeing what your thought is as well. When I come back and I do a download to my team the day after Abundance 360, it's amazing to see the newer members of our team's minds blown. And I think what you're going to start to see here as well. You can take the poll down, Peter, can you? Still showing. Perfecto. So for many of you, being excited about the future, so am I. I've got a thing that I do every year called Abundance 360. This is the 2021 Executive Summit. And up until about maybe 2 weeks beforehand, it was still going to be in person because they had medical doctors, that they had tests there. They had testing there, basically so that you get tested 4 or 5 times a day. And up to 2 weeks, a bunch of people were still going to go. I think a third or a quarter were going to actually go in person. I had chosen to stay here, as I believe California and LA at that time was the epicenter of what was going on when you had to make the decision early in January. What's interesting, though, is 2 weeks before, all went virtual. So we did a 5-day virtual starting Tuesday of 2 weeks ago for about 4 hours. And then all day Sunday, all day Monday. When I say all day, it goes from about 8 in the morning until about 8 or 9 at night. Monday, Tuesday, day off Wednesday, and then Thursday. Now, as you look at this, Abundance 360 was started by Peter Diamandis. What he did is chose about 9 years ago to do a program that talks about his book, Abundance, and he gets a lot of the technology pioneers out there and a lot of the entrepreneurs who are doing great things in technology, brings them in, they talk about the latest discoveries that things are doing, and then we have a discussion about what does this mean? What does it mean to technology? What does it mean to humans? What does it mean to families? How might we operate our businesses differently? Can we take advantage of this, or will it fully disrupt us? So he put this together, and he's had people, for instance, there's Tony Robbins in there. He's had some of the pioneers of, and actually the Avi Reichenthal, who is often said is one of the founders of 3D printing or digital manufacturing, as they call it today. And he brings them, and we have this constant lead of people I didn't even know were as great as they were because you don't have time to do this. Virologists, this time it was a heavy dose of longevity, and we'll talk about that. And really looking at it, it's the 9th year of the program of 25 years he's committed to. And I've been there for 8 of the years. The first year I wasn't quite sure. I don't know if I was even in strategic coach at the time. And that's how I was introduced to the program. But I think the question a lot of people have said is, well, why does my financial advisor do this? Why does he spend 5 or 6 days out with these people as well? And I see the 4 or 5 days I spent is studying the latest breakthroughs in technology and talking to these incredible entrepreneurs from around the world is really to see what the most innovative entrepreneurs are doing, what they're creating that may disrupt our lives. It may cure diseases. It may change the very way our family operates. So what I committed to is I find oftentimes when I'm there, it offers me hope. It creates new opportunities. It also gives me the ability to discern what I should bring home and share so that you're prepared for what is coming instead of being blindsided by these technologies when they may disrupt your life. So the key is this time as well, these technologies are coming faster than ever before. I'm going to call it miracles. We used to call them miracles when people could, the polio vaccine was a miracle. What's just happened, of course, with the coronavirus vaccine, they say is miraculous. These things are happening at much more rapid paces. And with computing power growing as it is, let me make this statement. Google has a quantum computer right now that is supposed to be 1 billion times faster than any other computer that exists. The Chinese have just one-upped them. They have a new supercomputer that is 1 trillion times faster and 10 million times or 1 billion times faster than Google's present quantum computers. Now, if you want to know about quantum computers, we can take a deeper dive another time. But with computing power coming into the world like that, it changes the game very rapidly, especially when intelligent, smart people, entrepreneurs like yourselves, can actually tap into those computers and use them for a single task, which I'll talk about here in just a little bit as well. So I really look at this as, I don't want your family to be, or you to be blindsided by something that I could have found out, we could have talked about, shown you ahead of time and introduced you to let you know, hey, this is coming. This is where the money is being spent. This is what they're working on right now. If you really look at this, I'm going to have to say, what if you retired for 50 or 60 years and you were only prepared for 20 or 30? How might that work out for you? It can lead to a dismal end. If I'm seeing true life-enhancing and reverse aging technologies coming out, being available in the next 5 and 10 years, it behooves us to be one of the first to be the crazy people, because great ideas are often crazy before people accept them. So you're going to fly to Mars? Who today doesn't believe that Elon Musk is going to fly to Mars within the next 6 or 7 years? But when he brought it up, people thought, that's just crazy. So what you're going to find today is if you have a 50 or 60-year retirement, might you rethink that? What if we could feel like we were 30 when we're 100? We might actually have 3 or 4 careers or one very, very long career and become phenomenal specialists because it's our vocation. So again, what I also want to tell you is there's a fine line between good and evil. So when you find these technologies, I know a lot of us are excited about them. You have to, and the way I attend this program is to have an equal dose of apprehension and an equal dose of excitement. I would love a robot to do my dishes. But if it's doing my dishes and somebody else can get into that robot, can it do other bad things in the house? So you've got to really watch this. You got to look at what these things might do. And maybe the secret to life is washing dishes. I doubt that too. So anyway, I just thought I'd throw that out there. So here's the one thing. The most important thing that we're supposed to bring away this year is our mindset. You've heard us talk about that many times, but our mindset. The difficulty is not in the new ideas, but escaping from the old ideas. That was brought up in 2 or 3 occasions, and that struck me. The difficulty is not in the new ideas. They're coming at us at rapid pace, but escaping from the old ideas. So I just want to start with those kind of comments just to begin and frame what we're doing here. But let's put a context into 2021. It was the most unusual and extraordinary time of our lives. It was really, for some of us, extremely difficult. It was an extremely difficult year for us. One of the most opportune times to invest, to reinvent, to pivot your business or yourself, and to turn crisis into an opportunity. This is a very, very overwhelming theme. This is something that came up from some of the top entrepreneurs there. But do you guys want to know the most valuable commodity in the universe? The most valuable commodity in the universe. They all agreed. The passionate and committed human soul. Still, by far, the most valuable commodity in the universe. When you're passionate, when you see somebody who's committed about it and they don't take no for an answer, they still move mountains. So yet another great aspect of the human, as long as technology allows us to be more human, great. That's fantastic. So after spending the 3 weekdays with the technology pioneers and the weekend as well, I want to tell you something. The future is faster than you think. The speed at which technological change is coming is accelerating. It's mind-blowing. Watching Peter feel a little bit uncomfortable, Peter Diamandis feel uncomfortable going, the stuff that's happening is almost unfathomable by the human mind now. People in AI, people in artificial intelligence are creating things that will change how and how long we live. I honestly feel that for several days, just after taking in this vast amount of information, I feel extremely uneasy. I'm extremely tired. You can, by the team here, by my wife and family at home, it's exhausting to think about all the possibilities, but then come to the realization of, okay, what are these are we going to use? This is my lane. This is how my clients can use it. The rest of this stuff is interesting, but I don't have to be involved in it. But when you're there, you get this FOMO feeling. Oh my gosh, that's great. Oh my gosh, that's great. I see all the possibilities. This is incredible. But bring back what it is we can use. Leave to others their expertise. That's the filtration device that takes. Now, I did say technology often is portrayed in this program as well as a Pollyanna fix-all, right? It's going to fix everything. But that's been promised for 50, 60, 70 years, okay? We also know there's dark side to the light. So when this incredible discovery is coming, there's a dark side as well as a light. To this attention, we must pay. That quote's directly from Yoda, but I thought that'd be kind of a good one to throw in there. To this attention, we must pay. This year, mindsets, again, being the most important thing we should take away, how we view changes, and this is extremely important. Are they happening to us, which is a victim mentality? Are they happening for us to benefit us? This mindset is a massive difference on the information I'm about to share with you. So let me give you a little bit of an idea of some of the categories we're going to talk about here. I know there's a long introduction, but I think it answers some of the questions I often get from this as well. I'll try not to speak super fast. A couple people actually spoke much faster than me, and I realized that when I do speak really, really fast, it's difficult to follow, sometimes even for myself. So let me give you an idea here. Some of the categories they agreed that we can have abundance in, and how does this change our world? So we look at advancements in computation, I just talked about at the beginning. Unbelievable advancements in artificial intelligence. Networks and broadband. We didn't talk about that as much this year, but there's a couple like Starlink I'll just mention. Sensors, a trillion sensor world where everything you have has a sensor in it. It's called the Internet of Things. Robotics and drones. You've seen those, and I'm going to continue with that progress of showing what robotics and drones do now and what their plans are. 3D printing, which is now called digital manufacturing, from the microscopic to the incredibly two-story building, and actually 3D printing rockets and rocket fuel, what is it called? The fuselage as well, where they hold the fuel. It used to be 270 parts. Now it's one single printed 3D metal object. And that from a relativity space is going to go up this year into space. And that's a massive savings when printing rockets. Also going to go through virtual reality. That is probably the single biggest thing they say. This piece right here, this is incredible, right? It's great, but it's something they believe is going to go away, and you're going to see it at Consumer Electronics this year. They unveiled something that was the roll phone. You basically roll out a screen, and it's a little computer that's about the size of your phone. You simply roll it out, roll it back together. But they think virtual reality and augmented reality glasses in the next probably 5 years will disrupt completely the phone and having a phone that you actually need to pick up. So as we look as well, digital technology, digital biology, I should say, there's a different concept. Digital biology is huge. Brain-computer interface. I don't know if you saw this, but just yesterday, Elon Musk had mentioned, or he put out a brief that said that they've placed the brain-computer interface in a monkey brain, and he is now playing video games with his brain. So kind of crazy. I don't like that they're doing that to monkeys, but I suppose if the monkey's having fun playing video games all day, maybe a bunch of teenagers would love this as well. We'll see. Blockchain and cryptocurrencies, and then materials and nanotech. We didn't talk as much about materials and nanotech, but these are all great, incredible subjects. What's amazing is where each one of these collides and combines becomes truly mind-bending. And that's incredible to see these people going, oh, if we take drones and artificial intelligence and we do this, all of a sudden you're going to see some things that seem completely unfathomable. But what I'd like to do is I'm going to actually try to break this into just 7 or 8 different topics: artificial intelligence, longevity, health, energy, food, drones and robots, VR, virtual reality and augmented reality, digital humans and spatial web. There might be 1 or 2 other things I throw in here as well, but it'll be a bit of a ride for us to go through as we run through this. But I want to do this in a couple different ways. I'll bring up some slides. Peter and I are going to work in conjunction. He'll bring up some things you guys will see. We'll bring up some slides. But a lot of we wanted to make sure we're just communicating this with you. So these 8 or 9 topics are really the ones that they concentrated on. There was about 100 topics we could expound more on, but the trouble would be we'd be here for about 5 days, and I don't want to subject you guys all to that. So a couple of the things we want to start off with here are going to be artificial intelligence. So I'll let Peter pull up the slide, I believe, for that one, and I'll get myself a drink. Artificial intelligence. So I told you before how AI won the game AlphaGo years ago. We told it the rules and it figured out how to beat the best AlphaGo player in the world, right? That's the AlphaGo. Here's what's incredible. This year, they actually put artificial intelligence against another player, the best in the world of a more complex game. Didn't even tell it the rules. It figured out the rules, it figured out how to play it, and then won. So you're not only beginning to get the idea of it can figure out the rules without knowing the rules. That's crazy. It's now figuring out how to play the game and how to play it better. The benefit for us in society is it can now figure out better ways to make nuclear reactors so they're safe, to make bridges so that they don't fall down, to make better road surfaces as well. So we actually have a set of creativity coming from coming from artificial intelligence that we may have never seen before. This is what's interesting as well. Peter, I think do we have that GPT-3 video? So GPT-3 is a artificial intelligence that just came out in July. We got to meet Sam Altman, who's the guy who founded it. And what we're going to do is show you here a little video of what it is. Now, I'm not going to have any volume or anything. It's going to be a short video, but it's actually asking the artificial intelligence through text to create an app that looks like Instagram. And it's doing it, by the way, all on its own with a simple voice command, a simple typewritten command. So it's interesting to watch this. I just want to show you how this works. As you can see there, the designer is simply entering in what they want. And right now this works via text. So they want a navigation bar with a camera icon, with photos, title, message icon, a feed of photos with each photo having the user icon. Now this is what it's asking. It's basically, apparently, I don't know Instagram that well, but apparently this is going to be almost a carbon copy of Instagram it's requesting. But this is doing its own universe. It's going to create it itself with that. Said design. Guess what shows up? Apparently, if you look at Instagram, it looks something like that. I don't know Instagram very well, but what this did is this showed what GPT-3 can do. That's what it looks like. It created that in just the time that you saw. So all of a sudden, what they look at here is, will you be able to do this? And it created that again. Thank you, Peter. I appreciate that. It created this before your eyes in that amount of time. So what's interesting about this, what can GPT-3 do? You've probably seen it if you're a techie. If not, you're going, what the heck are you talking about, Chris? Is that like R2-D2? It's basically, it took $14 million to program what GPT-3 is. Now that's an iteration 3. That's why it says 3. The first one was actually going to be just simply a way to figure things out. The second one was a better version. The third is even better version. But it's becoming pervasive. This is becoming something that's pervasive, and it's really planted and used in everyday products and services. Many people right now on an annual basis, on a daily basis, Salesforce.com is giving 80 billion predictions a day about who may pay an invoice, about what products may sell the best, and it's using artificial intelligence to judge that. So it's being used right now, and more money than ever is being invested into artificial intelligence. It's predictive, it's created, it's all-knowing within its subject matter, and when combined with sensors, it can monitor and take action itself. It can design and program with simple text commands, which you saw. It is very, very powerful. Now, we asked Sam Altman, what do we see this being used for? And he says, with right now what he has seen, he looks at it as possibly a personal tutor or teacher. It can offer you medical advice and also be a life coach. And he's not talking about 10 and 12 years out. He's talking about within the next 12 months. So all of a sudden, you start looking at these going, you can have the very best advice in life coaching or medical advice. There was somebody who had 30 years worth of a disease that they had symptoms for and had been really bothering them for 30 plus years. He entered into the GPT-3 and it came up with a solution for him in about, 50 seconds or something that he'd been suffering for 30 years. Now, he doesn't recommend this to get rid of your doctor. But what he's going to see is eventually your doctor is going to be using this GPT-3 to give better diagnosis on things that you can do. He looks at this potentially as having basically free medical advice. So the question that we have is, what will this mean to me? What does this look like in 10 years? In 10 years, Sam Altman sees this as you can basically speak to a system and it will create or do what you want. So let's say you want to design your own house. I want this, I want these beams, I want that. Boom, it can create them for you. Nope, I want the beams a little bigger. Oh, no, a little smaller. Yep, that's it. So how about creating your own home that way? Now do the structural engineering so that it can be done properly. Send the plans off and have it 3D printed. Boom. That could be the process of building a home in the future. So artificial intelligence is massive. I think AI is this is a statement that I've said as well. Bill Gates, you'll see others having comments on this. Artificial intelligence is the single biggest thing to happen in human history, and the single thing we also need to be most careful of. That came from me. Artificial intelligence and human collaboration is the goal, but eventually, it'll be smarter than us on certain subject matter. What it can't do yet is it can't love. It can't care. It doesn't emote. It doesn't have emotions. It doesn't do a lot of the right brain functions that we have as humans. And I say not yet because it may mimic them in the future. Oh, that seems like this robot really likes me. Oh, that seems like this. So this integration is very, very important. It may very well change the fiber of who we are. Matter of fact, Kai-Fu Lee said, it's the single biggest risk to humanity. So you've got people on different ends of the scale. It can help us tremendously. And the people designing it right now have every intention of this being designed as helpful, as not something that will hurt society. But there's people out there on the other side of the equation as well we'll have to watch out for. So when it came to artificial intelligence as one of the first pieces, it's across almost everything. Now, Sam Altman, if you've seen some of the latest Star Wars movies, the bad guy, who was taking place of Darth Vader, when the guy came on screen, I go, oh my gosh, is that the guy who this is, Sam Altman? No, it's not him, but he has a very similar, very straightforward. He's been doing technology and incredible things in his mind since he was quite young. But this is artificial intelligence and its pace of increase. By the way, this is also self-learning. So if you ask it to, one thing we saw, it said, make an avocado chair, your best rendering of it. It gave you 15 different renderings of what an avocado chair might look like. Then you said, no, I want it more green. Boom. Without the pit. Boom. It just started iterating. So it's very, very interesting to watch this. Something we're going to keep an eye on, something that will really take a lot of the things like your taxes. Let's say, here's all my tax forms. I feed them into a machine. It literally can split out a perfect return. So once it's applied to certain things as well, we'll make sure we use it. But then as a tax provider, what are you going to do? You're going to provide advice, or as so if you're just an investment person, you're just picking investments, okay, that's fine. But if you're a planner, if you understand people, if you have relationships, how can we use this to benefit you? That's what we're looking at as well. So that was the first one. That one was on artificial intelligence. Now, there are question and answer here. So if you guys have questions or anything you want to run through or stop, feel free. Peter will let me know when those come up, because I do want this to be somewhat interactive with you guys. What I love about the big time webinars we have is we get to do this together. We get to be excited. We get to hear this. I get to see your faces. I get to see whether you're excited and you ask questions. Make sure, still ask the questions on here if you can. But as I look at the very first one being artificial intelligence, is one of the biggest things we have to watch, be careful of, and also keep in check, because it can be phenomenal. It can also be quite horrible, depending on your view of that. So the next one I want to go to is longevity. Then from this one, I actually, Peter, do we have a poll for this one as well? For longevity, I want to actually ask you guys a question. And this is kind of fun because I brought it up amongst everybody there. And I think that they didn't really have the answer. No, but I'm going to ask you the question. How many people actually want to live longer? You know, we don't have a poll for this one, but if we did, oh, are you going to create one? Okay, Peter's going to create one. This is an on the fly. But I asked this question, how many people actually want to live longer? It's an interesting item because if you look at most of America, pain, suffering, living just on minimum wage or Social Security, do you really think that they really want to live longer? And I asked that question. This all sounds great when we're sitting here and you've got people who are driven. This is awesome. But to those who don't, maybe not. So Peter's going to throw up a poll right now. I'd like to see from you. I'd like to kind of do a little bit of a test from you guys. How many people would want to live longer if they could? This is great. Awesome. We got about 3/4 of you guys answering now. This is great. Awesome. Cool. Good. Out of about, okay, so excellent. That's great. Peter, I think you can, we're pretty close. We're at about 77%, almost 3/4 of you would, and 25% necessarily wouldn't. Now, what I look at is you guys are part of the group that I thought would be ones who might want to think about this and potentially have longevity. Why? Simply because here's the results overall, if you want to see them. The reason being is you guys are those who've saved money. You have had excess money to save. You have done that work. So you guys might be ones who want to. But I know there'll be some of us as well saying, I'm not sure that I would want to do that. And there's different reasons why. So I will close that out real quick here. But I think there's one question. Peter, did you see it? Good. Awesome. So as I continue going through this on longevity, I think it's interesting because I think a man, and this was said there, and it's been said by philosophers, that a man or a woman who has their health has 1,000 dreams. The man or woman who doesn't has but one. And it is so true. If you've ever had a health scare or a health thought, you know that everything you've been dreaming and doing all of a sudden stops and becomes singular. If I don't have my health, what good is that? And then when you've recovered, you kind of start to come back to, oh, maybe things that I thought were as important aren't as important. It may change your perspective. So I think that it's a really important thing to say, but I'm going to ask this question just to you. This is for you guys, no poll. But if 150 years old felt or looked like age 27, felt and you look like age 27 or 40, whichever age you choose, would you be interested then? If you could see your great-great-great-grandchildren, if you could teach them something, if you could take them to Disney, as some of you people like to do, if they could share your cabin, those are the kind of things that could be incredible. Well, what I want to do is in this longevity cycle, which will be a little bit longer of the cycles, we met 8 incredible doctors trying to make life better and longer for us. So like I told you before, I'm not interested in living for 150 years. As Christian, of course, I believe I've got, my personal belief is we've got eternal life anyway. So I said that at my table, we're talking about longevity. And I said, well, I've already got that. What they said is if you can contribute here on earth longer, be comfortable and actually be of value, would you do that? That's where the interesting conversations come in. Now, Dr. Daniel Kraft, who was one of the speakers there, he's a very fast talker. He must have had his coffee because he was wound up at about 3 times the speed of a normal human being. He was in National Geographic a year ago talking about, de-aging, and de-aging is a different word. We're gonna have to come up with some new terminology here. But he believes that COVID is the spark for the health age. What do I mean by the health age? You may have heard this before, but he believes 2021 was the catalyst year in moving from sick care to health care. Most systems, most quote health systems are actually set up to take care of you only when you're sick, not there to prevent you from becoming sick. That was a promise to some of the HMOs, the health maintenance organizations. Oh, we'll do these things to prevent it and it'll be much less costly, right? But what they're finding now is that this de-aging, what we're doing right now is looking at beginning to change from a sick care to a healthcare arena. Our healthcare insurances don't cover it presently. So most of the healthcare proactiveness, the things you can do to prevent a lot of things or to detect things super early, you're going to have to pay for yourself. Because right now, until symptoms show up, you go to the sick care system. They're radically going to change this to a healthcare system. So for those of you who have saved money, a portion of what you saved is probably going to go toward health care, not the insurance premiums you pay for sick care, but health care. So we'll talk more about that as well. It's a very, very important point. So this is another belief by Daniel Kraft. We'll be able to slow aging and begin de-aging. This is the future of health care. I call it the fountain of youth care. Some people have talked about it that way. And I get this from some of you, yeah, Chris, but starting now, when is this going to happen? So we talk about some of these things maybe 10, 15, 20 years out. They believe that they'll be able to add a quarter of a year of your life for every year you live. In 1 to 2 decades, they think that might be able to add 1 year per year that you live. Think about this. Wait. So if I live another year, I can live another year. So all of a sudden, doesn't that put me at a place where I could live pretty much as long as I want unless I get into some accident? They say, and one of the gentlemen here, Dr. Stone, said, there's no law of physics on aging. It's just senescent cells. So think about senescent cells this way. Senescent cells, have you ever had a bag of apples? One apple in that bag goes bad. What happens to the other apples right around it? They start to go bad. They start to rot a little bit as well, right? But what if you could pluck that apple out before it went bad? That's part of the process of de-aging. It's when bad cells go bad, get rid of them, repair the ones around them to remain youthful and actually reverse their age. So it's an interesting piece as you go in. This is another one. Wearables are becoming huge. So I have 2 things right now. I've got something called the Whoop Band, and I've got something called an Oura Ring. Peter has 5 wearables on him right now. Peter Diamandis does. He's got something planted in his body right here. There's also something called biometric tattoos. You essentially can get a tattoo of whatever you want on your body. It's outside of it, but it's a wearable monitoring system for whatever it is you have an issue with. Maybe it's glucose monitoring, maybe it's blood pressure, maybe it's anything. These are what's coming. So he calls the wearables incitables. They're going to give you biologic information, digital tattoo that reads bioinformation. I know a lot of these are big new words in some cases. He says there's shockables, hearables, breathables, shakables, sockables, underwearables. If you go through this, there's a ton. I'd love that if my Bob Ross socks here, if my Bob Ross socks say just a little happy accident. So wouldn't that be cool if those things could monitor going, Chris, you're not taking in enough water today. Chris, you need to walk more. Chris, blah, 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 maybe a fantastic thing. So at any rate, as you run through, this is one of the things. Now, all of these are giving AI or your doctor remote patient monitoring. So they can actually contact you if you need to, rather than you going, I'm not feeling well today. Your AI could tell you, that's all right. You've acquired a common cold, or you didn't get enough sleep last night, or something you ate might have been bad. So this is an interesting one as well. You hear about all the falls, and this comes from both your parents, sometimes yourselves, and maybe we're getting to some of the ages where this happens. But you've heard a lot about falls causing broken hips, right? Here's something that's coming from this. How about a belt with airbags in it that senses when you fall? It's coming out. It exists. For seniors, literally like a car, it prevents a broken hip and can extend life. These are the kind of things that sensors and wearables are looking at. So there's a whole lot more, but I want to just give you a few samples of how could this work for me? What would this pertain to? Well, hey, mom and dad should be wearing one of these because they've lost their balance. And this can help them. Matter of fact, if they're walking with a walker, why doesn't the walker have airbags that can prevent them from falling or sense when they're falling? This is coming. This is what they're working on as well. There's also some idea that the new iWatch is said to have real-time glucose monitoring coming in. That'd be the iWatch 6 or whatever the next one is, and give you some precision health and digital nutritionists. So for instance, these wearables will allow you to get precision health. Your body needs this, so-and-so's body doesn't. And then give you a digital nutritionist to say, listen, you don't have enough vitamin D in your body. When the sun goes away, you don't get a lot of vitamin D in Wisconsin. In Florida, maybe you continue to, but you need to take vitamin D supplements or get out in the sun. So there's a bunch of different things that can come with this. And what it's doing is creating almost like a FICO score for health. So these are all things, as we went through, that Dr. Kraft was talking about. Ubiquitous sensors you won't even see or feel or know. some swallowable sensors. So in other words, that maybe the colonoscopy that everybody talks about could just become something you swallow. Automatically the camera turns on, finds whatever it needs, and it's able to move on as well. So a little different experience from what I understand than now. And I've just turned 50, so I'll find out. There'll be digital coaches, mental and physical health as well. Chatbots can do the screening when you get sent in. And then if you need, just say some aspirin, they'll send digiceuticals. So here's a word, digiceuticals, digital pharmaceuticals. And guess what? Walgreens will deliver them to your back door. No longer front door delivery for mail. More protected is your back door. They'll put them on your back porch or your back landing area. Kind of crazy, but I want to make sure you know what will healthcare look like? The problem is, and this is one of the biggest problems right now, from medical discoveries that you hear about to care provided is around 17 years. So from medical discovery and cures to care provided right now is about 17 years on average. We need to break that barrier. So the FDA is working on it. People are working on it. But as you know, Dr. Knapp said, this gap is a big issue. Here's another one. I can relate it to education. Right now, what we learn, brand new information in education, before it gets to our kids and how we change teaching them, is around 20 years. So we are looking at a 20-year-old life cycle, a 20-year-ago cycle for both education and health. Those are things, it's rapidly dismantling. They believe now you won't graduate from college when it comes to education. You'll just sign up for a path of education because by the time you'd be done with 4 years, things will have changed enough. You're going to just need to continue learning your whole life. So getting a mindset of lifelong learning is probably something you want to instill in both your kids, your grandkids, and the rest of your family. Because lifelong learning literally is what we're going to need to keep up with this. So I want to make sure you know that. Another piece, I think that, you know, when you discern a lot of this stuff, you put it together, go, well, how does this apply to me? And I think the question I have with, if it takes 17 to 20 years, what can we do to close the gap? We want it to be safe when we get it. What's holding it back? First, decide what's holding it back, what allows it to get to us still within a safe time. I know what a lot of people do is they'll go to other countries. They'll go to, you know, south of the border, they'll go to Europe, they'll go to India to get some surgeries that we don't yet allow before we call them safe. And is it red tape? Or is it, you know, truly a benefit? Those are some of the things that you guys can come up with in your thoughts. Another one is David Sinclair. I talked about him last year. He has a couple of great books out there. David Sinclair. We'll give you in a summary, written summary. We'll give you some of the books that these people have, or give you their names so you can Google them if you're more interested. But David Sinclair has made more advancements in turning back sentient cells. Basically, sentient cells are cells that senescent cells. Senescent cells are cells that have basically passed away. They're not doing any good and they're infecting other cells around them. Our skin sags, you know, our muscles don't feel as strong in this. So there's ways we can actually turn those back. He says inside of it, there's a copy of what it was like to be 27 or 30 years old or whatever you want to be. Your cells remember how to do it. The key is they can get back and program your cells to do what they believe. And the question is, well, when? When can you start this? He believes from 2021, it'll be 3 years out or as soon as the FDA will allow it. Right now, they have a gene therapy that goes into eyes of mice that are blind and actually can reverse them, change the actual genes, and actually these mice have full vision again. So you're talking about some of the, you know, I guess retinitis and other things like that, pigmentosis, that we can actually go in and genetically cure in the body while living. It's going to be a miracle of modern science when they come out. And eventually we'll all be like, oh yeah, right now, like, you know, so-and-so, this, you know, what HIV used to be a death sentence. Today, it's like, okay, here's the cocktail deal. Matter of fact, they think they can actually now put a vaccine together that may get rid of the possibility of having HIV being anything to you. So we'll talk about that here in just a moment. But at any rate, David Sinclair has been coming out with some crazy, incredible pieces about how you can actually de-age and turn back time. So somebody asked him a question. They said, David, how many times can you do that? You know what he said? Well, I'm not sure. We don't know yet. The key is, too, we don't know what long-term effects these things have. So we ask those kind of questions. What are the long-term side effects? So far, none, but it's only been 3 to 5 years that they've been doing this. So again, as we get going, they think they found some great answers. We just need to make sure, you know, what happens to the side effects. There's another gentleman, Dr. George Church. If anybody here has seen Dead Poets Society, they did a portion in it where it was Walt Whitman. It was a picture of Walt Whitman with his huge beard, and they called him the sweaty tooth madman. It was very interesting because when Dr. George Church showed up, I was like, oh my gosh, that looks just like him. He is the guy, though, that you want doing these studies. He's in Harvard Medical. He's at Harvard, basically in their lab with genetics and also with viruses. It's very, very cool. He's launched 24 companies in the past 24 months. He's putting sensors in all transport areas. So he thinks we should put sensors in all transport areas where diseases could be. So for instance, in Los Angeles airport, in New York airport, in China, what you can do is immediately get an idea, is there something going on that we should know about, and stop all travel from those areas? Because that is one way to massively stop pandemics, not just to let people go free. Oh yeah, we know there's a pandemic, there's something going on, but to literally all public transportation areas have some sort of a screen that detects viruses that'll report to a central reporting agency at some point in time. He's also talking about having enhanced organs. So for instance, let's say my kidneys don't do well. How about 3D printing or creating a kidney that actually is better than the ones that were in my body? They actually are optimal, and they're also my own blood type and my own tissue type, so that they don't reject. This is what they're working on in the Harvard labs. Here, you'll like this. Dr. George Church, I asked him all a question about the vaccine, but he said, oh yeah, he's not going to be vaccinated. Because in his lab, he created a vaccine and he ingested it nasally, just so he vaccinated himself. Not too many people are technically apt enough to do it, but he did. So of the 4 experts on it, he actually had vaccinated himself, which was quite funny. We look at him going, oh, interesting. He's the one who also said physics sees no limitation on lifespan. So they're not sure how long people could live. I'll talk about this in a minute, but you go back to perfect foods, perfect nutrition. People maybe did live to 100, 120 or longer way back in the past, unless they got eaten by a tiger or something else, which is more likely what happened back then. But if you go way back, you hear some about these times people lived to 1 in 200. He goes, it's possible. It's very possible, especially with perfect nutrition and a lack of the disease we have in the world. So Dr. Melanie Ott, she was talking on vaccines. She's been working on vaccines, I think it's at Gideon Institute. And as you look at this, she's looking to prevent pandemics. So they were part of the people who were instrumental in bringing together the vaccines on the messenger RNA, the new delivery system. And also they think they're putting together pan vaccines, so pan-viral therapeutics. That basically means that if you have a common cold, any strain of common cold that comes in, you're immune to it. You have an immunity based on the vaccine you get. So they're working toward this as well. So she says we will be able to live free again, she thinks. So it's cool to hear these people say that. And I asked all 4 of these doctors, will you be getting the vaccine? Everyone, yes. But I'm not on the front lines, so I wanted everybody else in the system who is on the front lines to get it first. I don't care if I take the Moderna. I don't care if I take the Pfizer vaccine or Johnson & Johnson or any others that come out. I'm totally going to get it, and as soon as I'm in line for it, I will. So it's neat. None of these people jump the line with any vaccines. They're letting it happen in proper order. They also said this. These doctors said, how much does it take to find these? CRISPR this year, CRISPR, which is gene editing, won the Nobel Prize. It's amazing. CRISPR won the Nobel Prize. Dr. George Church was actually involved in that. And I think it was Dr. Yakamoto or somebody had won it this year for their research. It took them $2 million to go from concept to reality. $2 million. So the research isn't that expensive. A little bit of funding goes a long way when it comes to grants for these people's labs. So it was an interesting thing to hear. I thought it'd take billions of dollars to do it. No, it was a few million, 2 million to go from there to Nobel Prize in CRISPR genetics. It's crazy, Chris. And we'll talk more about that another time. So here's what I want to ask, a summary of longevity. What would you do with an additional 10 to 50 extra healthy years? I've asked some of you this. Travel the globe, see your great-great-grandchildren, work on that project that's been sitting there for 20 years in your house that you haven't completed. Nudge, nudge. There are so many different things, but the cool thing is one of my clients said this, Chris, that means I could put off for an extra 50 years all the things I've been putting off in my life so far. So you start to take a look at these kind of things, and it does create like a second career, travel, see great-great-grandchildren, have a photo that has 7 generations in it. These are the possibilities as well. So I'm gonna go into the next one here. We can do a little stretch break if you like to, but I'm gonna go into sleep next. I'm not gonna sleep, but I'm gonna talk about sleep next. But stretch, just go ahead and take a minute, stretch, think about this. Write down some questions. If you have questions for Peter, me, whatever, go ahead and put them in the Q&A pool. Stand up, stretch a little bit, get yourselves going. I wish I had the music that Peter Diamandis had because he was jumping up and down, dancing the whole time. Seems silly to begin with, and then you realize, oh my gosh, That makes a Zoom call energetic. So I'd like to do that. Go ahead and stretch just for a minute here. Write down some of the thoughts, though, if you could. And this is one of the things we did as Strategic Coach. If you have an extra healthy 20 years, what would you do with it? Would you go back to your career? Would you go back to your family? Would you work more in this? Would you volunteer some areas? Would you take a trip somewhere and teach people something? So it's an interesting piece. Start with that. We'd love for you to share that with us. All right. So for those of you who aren't already asleep because of the program being so long, we're going to talk about sleep. So I want to give you something here. Dr. Matthew Walker. And there's a chance we're going to bring him on. I'd love for you guys to, if we are lucky enough to get him, we're going to bring him on. He's an expert that we want to bring on because I've read him on both Masterclass and seen him here as well on Zoom. Would have been in person, but in Zoom. And he is absolutely, you will be shocked by the statistics on a lack of sleep. So he sees them and he is shocked by the statistics on lack of sleep in America and the world. So here's what he says. If you want the single biggest antidote or the single biggest component of living a long life, sleep for longevity. So my brother-in-law and I used to have this joke at the dinner table when we're eating at Thanksgiving, just piling on the food, sleep, sleep, sleep away the weight. We were going to make an infomercial. We were joking. So yeah, I sleep 10, 15, I sleep 20 hours. Man, I'm losing weight like crazy because I never have time to eat. So what's interesting about this is we were actually kind of onto something with that as well. Not 15, 20 hours, but some of the best athletes in the world, LeBron James and Roger Federer, sleep 10 to 12 hours a day whenever they can, because sleep impacts everything. It is the single most effective and best thing you can do for your body. So it's effective thing for all of your health. Here's some of the things. Anxiety, dementia, Alzheimer's, and Parkinson's have all seen causal links to lack of sleep. So his Sleep Institute in the United Kingdom and also in the United States is really tearing down the thing we spend 1/3 of our lives doing, but really don't understand. So I've got some sleep monitors on my wrist, on my finger. They tell me some certain things. It's just interesting to look at what I eat before I go to bed. If I practice the things I'm going to tell you from Dr. Walker, seriously, one of the best things I think that our firm has ever done is that I've learned that 7 to 8 hours of sleep, whatever my cycle is, mine is about 7.5, is the single best thing that I can do for our firm here and for you. What it says is, don't stay up all night working on a problem. Sleep on it. You literally will end up much better than doing an all-nighter. All-nighter, you're going to be miserable the next day, and I'll talk about why. He said this, age a man by a decade after a week of lack of sleep. They're doing tests. And they're doing tests. When people get into REM sleep, they wake them up. They wake them up, so they get no REM sleep for a day. It's like they're drunk. They get no REM sleep for a week. It's like aging them a decade. So these studies are incredible to say how important is sleep. And I'll tell you a few things about how to do sleep better. He also says daylight savings time. Kill daylight savings time because it's killing us. The day daylight savings time comes in, there's a 37% increase in heart attacks. The day we fall back, 37% decrease in heart attacks. It's crazy. But you look at this and say, why do we have that? It was for agricultural. I grew up in the heart of agriculture in Iowa. It was for agricultural reasons. Maybe it's time not to have it anymore. This is interesting coming from him. Okay, this is a good one. I was at a program with a bunch of advisors, and I remember this. I think it was in Las Vegas with Raymond James. And we had a sleep expert there, and people started raising their hand. How many people sleep 8 hours or less? Everybody raised their hand. Okay, oh yeah, well, a bunch of guys, yep. How many people sleep 7 hours or less? And a bunch of people raised their hand, kept their hands up, a few down. 6 hours or less, and then maybe 2/3 of them took their hand down. 5 hours or less, and then oh yeah, I sleep 5 hours or less. And one guy was 4 hours. I sleep 4 hours a night, or 2 or 3. And then he said the number of people who can sleep less than 6 hours and have no results whatsoever, the percentage is absolutely numerically expressed as 0. So you look at this, 0. Be as proud as you want. But if you sleep less than 6 hours, it's affecting your life and health in some way. Very interesting. This is from a sleep expert who's been studying this his whole life. Here's a case. If we could have evolved to need less sleep, we would have. We're actually finding every major physical and biological function, sleep is the best medicine. Deep sleep drops cortisol levels. Sleep less than 7. Oh, here's another one. If you're going to get a COVID shot, if you're going to go out and get it, sleep more than 7 hours a night before. Get a good deep sleep, because the effects of how you take that shot and how your body reacts to it, he says, are much better on a full sleep. Do not short sleep. He said, do not short sleep before you get your flu shot if you can. You may be excited about it, but try to sleep all night if you can. Sleep will also make new memories, and it will future-proof all the information you learn. So if you learned a ton today, you really learned a ton about it, and you want to cement that in your mind, sleep tonight. Go to bed early, sleep through the night. It'll cement the information, and you won't lose it. If you have a huge day and you learn a ton and you sleep 2 or 3 hours, it's just as good as maybe not even learning the information at all. Never stay awake on a problem, sleep on it. This is true. Doctors, one of the biggest things you can do is if we could monitor our physician's sleep before they do a surgery on you, if they had bad sleep, it's up to 87% chance that there'll be some sort of a medical error made. So we actually would like to know the sleep of the doctor before they actually work on us. So the profound connection between Alzheimer's, beta amyloid is crazy. If you deprive people of REM sleep, the beta amyloid tends to stick more to the brain. And basically he causes, every night you sleep, there's sanitary salvation every night. So use this. The lymphatic system cleans out your brain and takes these plaques that should be on there and washes them away. So good night, he calls it, good night is a sleep clean night. Get rid of toxic protein. So here's 5 things you can do. What can we do to improve our sleep? We're going to send you something as well, but here's 5 things you can do. Eat light at night. That's just one statement. Eat light at night. So actually, they'd say that eat your big breakfast, very big lunch, small dinner, and eat early in the evening, not anywhere near bed. Regularity is a king. So if you go to bed every night at 10, go from 10 till 5 or 6 or whatever, make that your consistency. So if you have a big party or something, consider going home early and keeping to that schedule if you can. Darkness, drop the lights about an hour beforehand. If you can get some red lights by you or some other system, turn your lights to red like the sunset, because it's signaling to the brain to calm down and start working on this, getting ready for sleep. Keep it cool. Keep your room at around 65 to 67 degrees centigrade. There's a few things we can send out called the Ooler or the chili pad that can keep your bed that temperature as well. Walk it out. Don't stay in bed for more than 25 minutes if you can't stay asleep. You've got 90-minute sleep cycles. If it's 20, 25 minutes, get up and walk it out. Do something, then come back to bed once you're tired again. Alcohol and caffeine. They have a half-life of about 12 to 16 hours for caffeine. So essentially, when you drink a cup of caffeine, stop by noon, you'll have a much better sleep. Its half-life goes 12 to 16 hours. I don't care if you think you're not getting a good sleep. It'll make it a shorter, less deep sleep with less restorative. Also, bad news for alcohol lovers. Alcohol is horrible for sleep quality, because it's a sedative and it gives you sedation versus sleep. Alcohol may help you fall asleep, but it will fragment your sleep and give you much worse sleep as well. So if you're interested in these, I know for coffee lovers and alcohol lovers who like to have their drink at night and coffee all day long, I apologize. I just want to give you what the experts are saying. So that's one of the key. I did ask a question. I asked the question, what about sleep due to hormones in certain different times of life? And he said, that's the one thing. Hormone replacement therapy can regulate temperature and also regulate sleep, but that's not the answer for everybody. So it's got different side effects as well. So they don't have the answer for the different times of life that people go through hormonal changes. And I asked the question for many people and everybody across the call. CBT, they're not sure about CBD. It may be something that's good. They're right now finding that it's okay. The sleep is a little bit worse, but it's definitely worse on the THC. That's the hallucinogenic side of marijuana plant. But there's not enough data on the CBD, but they're guessing that it might actually be helpful if they're guessing overdoses over 50 milligrams. But that's just his thought right now. There's not enough data, so he doesn't want to give any recommendation. He does say this: when you're in a hospital, it's a disgrace for patients. They wake you up all the time, prodding you and poking you. It's just like you're sleep depriving. And what they should do is, if you're asleep, let people in the hospital sleep, because they need that to recover, and only poke or prod them, not on the doctor's schedule, but on the patient's schedule. So he said that as well. Profoundly to help them, when you walk into the hospital, you should get earplugs and a mask immediately. Those are 2 things you should get to keep all the other stimulus out. Your teenagers should sleep like crazy because their brain is rewiring. They need it to be healthy. They need to get as much sleep as possible. So when they come home and sleep from 3 p.m. until 5 p.m., let them. Their brain is actually rewiring as well. So there was a lot more on sleep as well, but I wanted to give you some of those highlights of sleep because Dr. Matthew Walker is one of the experts on it. And really, if you want to change your life just right now and how you feel tomorrow, diet and sleep are two of the biggest things that you'll have. I'll talk about food in just a little bit as well. There's a lot going on there, but again, I couldn't hit on everything. These are just a couple of things I think that are the most important for you right now. So what I have right now, louder. So pre-sleep. So there's a question about, is there anybody working on a cure for cancer? The answer is yes. There is a couple of incredible therapies and technologies right now. They're working on targeting the cancer itself in your body and helping your own immune system power up to kill it. Because what happens in cancer, if you understand it, it's fed by sugar. They find that sugar feeds cancers. So that is one thing. If you want to reduce some of the chances of cancer, they say, to reduce your sugar intake. Sugar is addictive and cancer feeds on sugar. When you get into maybe one of those called keto diets tend to be have less availability for cancers to feed on. So it's actually going to be, they think cancer reducing. But some of the experts are working on cells that will go into killer cells that literally just go in and kill the cancer cells that are in your body, the things that are growing too much, and they leave the good stuff alone. You know, chemotherapy, for those of you who've been through it, it hits everything. So they are working around the clock on cures for cancer, and they believe they understand it. There's 962 different types of cancer. So what they're finding is they believe they're finding a cure that could be pan-cancer, or it could be, that means all of cancer, or each individual type as it goes along. So yes, there is a lot of research going on that, and all sorts of new therapies. The question is, how quick can they get to market because of FDA and efficacies and side effects? But they're working heavily on that. The answer is yes. Good question. Thank you, Peter. And please feel free to fire the questions in. I mean, I really think those are important too. Because again, I can't share most of what I learned with you. It's like an entire college class given to me in 5 days. And for those of you who know me, I can take a lot of information in at once. The key is to discern and sit back. And that's what takes me so long. Go, what do I want to show people? What's most important? What would be most important to you? And that's what I'm hoping to show here. So I'm going to hop into energy. Peter, will you have a slide for energy? So there's a gentleman named Bill Gross. He's from a company called Idea Lab. Bill Gross is one of those guys, kind of like I taught you last year, of the man who became a woman who basically did all sorts of crazy, incredible things. This is like Bill Gross as well. And in Bill Gross, he said this, and we all know, the sun and the wind gives us 10,000 times more energy than we could ever need on Earth. What he has done is created a company called Heliogen, and it's unlocking the source of basically focusing all these photovoltaic, all the sun on a single spot on a water heater, essentially on a tower, and it heats the water up to 1,000 degrees centigrade, and it splits the hydrogen and the oxygen. So the byproducts are oxygen, which we breathe, and hydrogen, which we can use for fuel. This is called green hydrogen energy. So he has this, and he's found out the way to do it, and it's incredible. Peter, we have a video on Heliogen. Yeah, Peter, I'll take just a moment. I'll talk a bit about it until it comes up here. But essentially, Heliogen's unlocking a source of energy, and this is what's amazing. I'll talk about a couple statistics. It's green hydrogen, and basically, there's a ton of orders coming in on this right now. What place wouldn't want to unlock 100% clean energy through water, be able to store it in rocks in the ground with heat, and also store it with these cement columns? So Peter's going to go ahead and show this video real quick. This is absolutely amazing.
Sustainable civilization, we must figure out cleaner and more cost-effective ways to produce the energy we need. At Heliogen, we're doing just that. We're replacing fuels with sunlight. We are a team of Caltech and MIT-trained scientists and engineers that have created the world's first technology that can commercially replace fossil fuels with carbon-free, ultra-high temperature heat from the sun, taking a major step towards solving climate change. Our HelioHeat can be used by customers to replace their use of harmful fossil fuels. Historically dirty industries like cement, steel, and mining can now be greened with our technology, which for these customers leads to significantly reduced energy cost, a shrinking carbon footprint, and the ability to take great strides in both reaching and exceeding corporate sustainability goals. Heliogen's technology can not only replace fossil fuels, but also transform sunlight into fuels. We call these heliofuels, which can be used in applications as diverse as automotive, trucking, aviation, and even heavy machinery. Our initial focus is the production of green hydrogen. We are so excited to bring this breakthrough technology to industry, consumers, and the world for the very first time. We are currently looking for additional customers and partners who understand and value the commercial readiness and industrial scalability of the Heliogen technology. We feel that the time to act is now, and with your help, we can further our mission of empowering a sustainable civilization. We welcome you to join us in that mission.
Awesome. Thank you, Peter. So there you see something groundbreaking. He said that there's 700 square miles in Australia that if we had these Heliogen towers there, it could power all the energy the world needs. Now, since then, he said they're looking for new customers, looking for new clients. He has more orders than he can handle. So they have more orders than they can handle right now with Heliogen. The cool thing is they've got this old technology. And any of you who have traveled to countries in Europe and other places that use renewables, there's these kind of water shafts that they send up mountains. And why do they do that? I often asked. And they said when they get an abundance of energy during the day through sunlight, more than we can use, they send water with this energy up to the top of a mountain. And then at nighttime, they let the energy come down by the water coming down and creating electrical currents. I'm like, well, that's kind of crazy. They've got a better solution at Heliogen that's 90% efficient. I think that's like 20% efficient or something. They said they have these massive cement, like tons and tons of cement weights, just like you'd use on a Tinker Toy or some of those erector sets you get. And they're massive tonnages lifted up during the day when there's energy. And at nighttime, they use the energy of gravity to pull it down to release the energy. And it's like 84% efficient. So these technologies, these are what smart people are doing out there. So if you look at this, I'm calling it energy ubiquity. Energy abundance and energy ubiquity are approaching. I've seen them. They're coming. The key with us is this is also a massive change. Right now, we're going to need, and he said, getting energy is not the big deal. We can do that. It's storing energy. So as he said it, holding on to electrons is the tough part of it. So we're going to need 17,000 times more battery storage than we have presently. That's why you'll see gigaplants. I always see people feverishly looking on this. To my clients who are at Johnson Controls, battery storage was huge to them. It was their whole business in many cases. So as you look at this, this is massive. For instance, like when the car, why did we start driving cars versus horses? It wasn't because we put a bunch of laws that horse manure in the city wasn't going to work. No, the car was just better eventually, but at first it wasn't. It went 5 miles an hour, then 15, then 20, and then there were roads. So with this as well, you're going to find a massive transformation toward green hydrogen and energy, but it will power electric cars in an efficient way versus the dirty electricity that we use now with coal and other forms. So it's massive change to that. So it's also redistribution of wealth. Why do you say that? What are the most ideal conditions to see sun? But typically in a desert where there's no clouds and it's super hot, right? Well, they can put these plants there, and in areas that cost almost nothing, the energy drain there now can actually be the source of energy that is super valuable versus the petroleum that's under the ground. Right now, petroleum has been for most of our world where riches come from. This can reorder the world when it comes to energy. Now, poor countries with abundant sunlight can become one of the biggest wealth redistributioners that we've ever seen. And they now can also prosper and join the first world nations as well. So that's a lot of what they're talking about this in rearranging geopolitics. Those old oil nations, I mean, some of the places like Saudi Arabia who have both, they're ramping toward this as well and running toward it. So very, very cool to see energy abundance. But here's a question I have. What will happen if energy is cheap and available everywhere? What can't be done? So they're working on nuclear fission as well, which we know this, they're working on Heliogen. There is a lot coming when it comes to energy. I won't go through too much more of it, but it's really a radical changing because energy is needed for almost everything we do. And if we can power it on a clean way, we'll talk about that again. So next one I want to run into is food. I won't go as deep into this one, but food is essentially, you've seen vertical farming before, right? And I think as we go through food is vertical farming. And Peter has a slide that he's showing for this. Vertical farming looks like you see here. Vertical farming is basically saying we can grow things with proper sunlight at the proper times with proper nutrition. But wait a minute, with proper what, Chris? With proper nutrition. Vertical farms before were just trying to grow as much as they could, whatever the quickest crop they could grow that would feed us, right? But here's what's happened with agriculture over the last probably 100 years. The orange, the apple, The tomato that you ate 100 years ago was up to 80% more nutrient dense and better for you and better for your biome than today. We've extracted most of the nutrients from most of these by overplanting and over harvesting. What Peter was showing you there as well on that slide, though, is the vertical farming we had in the past is going to be replaced by bioorganic farming, which actually puts out to us perfect nutrition. They're looking for perfect nutrition, perfect time for sun and sunlights, and 18-hour sun cycles. So these things can be ready in a few weeks rather than a few months like we have in our gardens now. They're also with these, it's called vertical or indoor agriculture 2.0. They're using robotics and best-in-class technology for leafy greens and also for fruiting vegetables as well, fruiting trees and others that have different needs and light cycles. So they're finding exactly what they need in the optimal range for them. And they're also putting in the perfect soil with the microbes that allow it to grow and that we can eat and ingest as well. So it is one of the biggest things that they're using is fish. You're going to see a lot of fish in the bottom of these at the lowest end of the scale. And really they feed with a lot of the bio waste that they come. A lot of the great nutrients that come from fish are what are powering and feeding a lot of the plants on the way up as well at a very, very, very low cost. Sometimes 20 or 30 times less expensive than raising a chicken or raising a cow. So as we get back to organics, getting back to eating healthy food, it can have up to 90% better nutrition than it did today, more like it was 100 years ago. So urban farming is occurring probably in all cities. What you're going to see is downtown Milwaukee, for instance, is going to get it. You're probably not going to find this in Iowa per se, maybe in Des Moines. Maybe you'll get it in big cities. But what they're going to do is it also cuts down the transportation time of perfect vegetable. So if it's edible within 48 to 68 hours or to 62, or there's some time frame on it, 60 hours, if you will, it's automatically to you during that time to have perfect nutrition on a constant basis and always available. That'd be great. If I had a salad that was perfect every day sitting here, I would absolutely love it and eat it, and I'd feel much better for it as well. So it helps you physically feel better. So 40% of the world's soil has been eroded by up to 40 times replacement rates, which is craziness. But they want to turn soils into great things as well. So perfect food that is colorful and tasty and nutrient dense. You know, you grow it sometimes in your garden and it smells and tastes better. That's what they're looking to do for us on a constant basis for all produce in many areas. So Boston Dynamics has really been putting a lot of work into these as well. And I showed this to my wife when I first came home, and my daughters as well. And the very first thing when they saw it, they were like, "Oh my God, that's so cool. It's so lifelike." And then about 20 seconds later, the comment came out, "Well, there's the end of humanity as we've known it." So it was really interesting to hear that going, "Oh my gosh, these are so human-like. What could this be?" It's like the Terminator robot running around as well. So it's kind of interesting to see that as well. There was, if you look over at robots, if you look at drones, I think Peter has a video as well here of a robot that I think could be super helpful for us. If you don't like doing dishes, if you don't like doing some of the tasks around the house, Samsung is looking to help. Let me show you this.
Bot Handy uses AI to understand objects, like a glass cup or ceramic plate, taking note of their shape and materials to work as your trusted partner. Bot Handy can move around and do things like set the table or put away groceries. It flips the script on what a robot in your home could look like. Good job!
So now as you come back and take a look at robots, maybe doing your dishes. Now, Samsung says this is maybe within the next year or so or two, but they really want to make sure that there's a companion for us. Look at all the possible uses of what robots could be to us. Beneficial, how they may work for us. There's some incredible things as well. There's some incredible things going on with drone technology as well. Again, rather than me talking about a lot of this, I mean, you're seeing them from Walgreens. How about you order, your doctor says, or your phone takes your temperature, finds that you've got a bit of a fever. All of a sudden, you hear something in your backyard dropping off the aspirin that you need from Walgreens, and it does it within about 2 minutes and 35 seconds. Those are some of the amazing things going on. Do you have a drone video, Peter? Nope. Perfect. We don't have a drone video, which is good because it's going to go way too long otherwise. Peter does have a Mr. Roboto video. We'll just send you the link for. If you actually know the band Styx and you go back to I think it was 83 when it came out, Mr. Roboto, if you listen to it very closely, it actually has lyrics that are scarily and eerily close to today. What's that? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, so Peter's actually going to show you just the beginning of it. We won't go through the whole thing. I'll let you watch it later. But it's eerie to see. At the time, it just seemed silly. Oh.
Just kind of washed out my front wheel.
Let's go ahead and put your saddle on, big boy.
Okay? Yeah.
Hey, there he is. Happy birthday.
All right, well, giving you an idea of what drones may be able to do. I love it when the farmer, when the rancher goes out there and he gets his, gets something for the horse. The dad gets the cakes because he burnt it. It's really cool to see, but this is what's coming with drone delivery as well. And Amazon, we got to talk to, I think his name, I got to remember here now. I met some people, Jeff Wilkie, who's the CEO, the outgoing CEO of Amazon Worldwide Services. And talking about some of the stuff they do at Amazon is absolutely crazy because they're the size they are. They actually made 2 COVID testing facilities, 500,000 per day each. And they didn't just build one, they built 2. So their employees every day could be tested and feel comfortable and safe at work. They did this in record time and they said, why not? Was it the smartest way to do it? He said, no, but we could. The same things with drone delivery. They're looking at drone delivery. And just recently they got some FAA regulations put in place that there's drone zones, which can be able to drop things off and directly to your home. So they're really pushing in all directions to have convenience like that given to us and used for us. So looking at drone delivery is a massive portion of what's going on as well. What I'm going to do as well is I want to hop into something. Anybody ever seen, actually, I think I did this, Peter. Do we have a poll about ever played in VR? Yeah, so I want to ask you a question. And I want to go through this. This is going to be another poll. I know that you guys are getting long in the tooth here, but stick with me. Have you ever experienced or played in virtual reality or a headset? Excellent. Excellent. Good. You guys are fantastic. That's good. So it looks like, again, about 70% of you have not. So what's interesting about this, the 30% that have, it's a very interesting technology. It's now something, they've got the Oculus Quest 2, which looks like this. And the Oculus Quest 2 is not tethered to a computer in any form. And actually, they've gone to reduce. Some people used to get headaches and motion sickness from it as well. And I would say I don't recommend going into it for too long. But what it does, it allows you, for instance, to experience something called the spatial web. It allows you to experience Victoria Falls. You may never have gone there, but it does allow you to go there at some point in time and view it. So for instance, there's all sorts of experiences and games and even social collaborations. There's something called the spatial web, which I'm going to bring up here in just a minute. Virtual reality, augmented reality, and I call it mixed reality are 3 of the things that more money is pouring into than almost anything else as well. So glasses like this, when you want to do virtual reality, where you're completely closed out from everything in your environment, is one way to do it. That's a full immersive experience, they call it. Augmented reality are these glasses that I have right here. These aren't augmented reality, but they believe they're going to have these where I can literally see screens that are 50 or 100 inches, whatever I want to see, and all the different statistics I want across the dashboard, all projected through these. They also believe this will be the replacement of your phone. If you're wearing glasses or virtual reality or augmented reality glasses, it will literally replace your phone. Why do we say this? Because Facebook and Apple are both coming out with AR glasses, augmented reality glasses, within the next year. So when I look at this, I like to ask you guys if you've seen this or played with it. It's something. These glasses, by the way, now are $299. They're so incredibly in demand that for the last 6 months, since they've been available, you haven't been able to get them. What you're finding, though, is this is a way that you can actually connect with people in some of the spatial web, which I'm going to talk about next, that you can connect in a somewhat human way we have now with people anywhere on the earth. So we did this. We did some great experiments with that as well. But I'm going to say on an ongoing basis, virtual reality and augmented reality glasses and headsets are going to be extremely important to the future, I'm going to call it, of experience, of learning. They find that kids who learn on virtual reality glasses, at least some portion of what they're doing, learn 273% faster and retain the information better because it'll be tuned directly to them. A lot of great uses for it. But what we don't want to do is get lost immersively in VR and live our lives with glasses on, right? So those are some of the worries that you have and some of the keys that you have with them as well. But when you ever see Facebook and Apple starting to put a ton of money into something to provide them to us and to bring Oculus to us at $299 versus several hundred, you're starting to find what I call the user interface moment, where all of a sudden, right price point, enough people get into it. Now the content is going to explode. You want to watch the Super Bowl in virtual reality glasses from the 50-yard line? Here you go. You want to be able to, skydive? Here you go. There's all sorts of incredible experience. You want to play games? There's a game called Supernatural, which is a workout. When you're done, you'll have no idea that you worked out as much as you did, but it's more of a game that you're playing. And it's a physical workout as well. So we go through virtual reality and XR, the last one I want to talk about is digital humans and spatial web. So this one is interesting. Digital humans in the spatial web. Digital humans are this. So Peter Diamandis at Hour One went into this website and created a digital image of himself. And they did this for us to see. He could then type in whatever text he wanted, and it would speak just like I am right now, but it could do it in any language that they wanted to translate it to, and it looked like he was talking just like me. So now you had virtual Peter Diamandis, and you had real Peter Diamandis, and it was very hard to tell the difference. And he could speak Mandarin, Russian. He spoke, what else did he speak? Spanish. He spoke Greek, and he spoke English. So 2 of those languages he can speak anyway, which is Greek and English. But it's amazing to see this. And what it brings up is, wow, that's really cool. You can do a recording for your family. You can type text for your family. It can speak for you. But my question is now, if you have let's say you have a president and a virtual president, and they look exactly the same. One of them comes online by somebody who's less than scrupulous, who's somebody who's, from the dark side, and says, hey, we're going to bomb. We've got some bombs coming in. They're coming in from Russia. We're going to start our nuclear weapons. What is a nation going to do when it can't tell the difference between the two? So spatial web, digital machines, you've seen soul machines. Again, Samantha was our digital soul machine person who actually did all the introductions for Abundance 360 again. And you're starting to see this incredible digital human space come together where they believe within the next 5 to 10 years, your digital human potentially could do almost all the video, all the recording, and you won't be able to tell the difference. So here's the thing I say. If you thought fake news typed was a big issue, just wait till you have fake humans. Can you tell if it's a human or not? So these are some of the issues I see coming. There's some great opportunities with it, but there's also some great risk with that piece as well. The last thing I want to talk about here and just mention is the spatial web. So there's something called the spatial web. The internet is 2-dimensional. Just like right now, you've got us on this 2-dimensional screen, and then it's just us sitting here and we're talking, right? What spatial web does is it makes it 3-dimensional, where I can actually go around in the web and have experiences with people. So spatial web did this. On Monday, we did our morning meeting on spatial web, and we got to walk around and talk to each other. As we got closer to each other, Peter has a picture right here of us in spatial web. This is actually our Monday morning meeting on spatial web that we did. The top left corner is with me, Peter Diamandis, and Eric Poulier, the guy who founded it. And it's kind of like the World Wide Web 3.0. It's now got 3 dimensions to it. So what you're seeing on the bottom is all of us there. Those are all circles, are our Zoom screens. And we can go anywhere we want to within a big area. And as I get closer, the volume gets louder. And it's also spatial. If Peter's on my right, I'll hear it on my right speaker. If Peter's on my left, he'll hear it on my left speaker. It is incredibly immersive. As we move apart, we get more quiet. And if Peter and I want to go talk in a corner, we can. If we want to talk individually, we can turn and face what's called face each other. And it's just like you're sitting here face to face on your Zoom web screen. But the cool thing is you can circulate amongst 100 different people. You can find them. You can put a screen up. In spatial.io, which is the top right corner you see there, you can actually put up entire presentations. If I wanted to put the Super Bowl up there and we've got virtual humans there, we could watch the entire game together, still talk with each other during the game and watch it together no matter where we are in the world. So what the spatial web is starting to do, there's very few searches on spatial web because it's not a very popular. This is something I'm bringing to you like cryptocurrency 6 years ago. So 6 years ago, Peter Diamandis gave us $10 in cryptocurrency with a little code on it. It was just a piece of paper and said, here, keep this. It's some fun to play with. We're like, whatever. So a bunch of people threw them away because it was just like a little, pamphlet thing. Today, that $10 is worth like $4,000 or $5,000. So we were introduced to something we didn't know was going to be a big thing, and it became massive. When you look at this, they believe the spatial web is very similar. It's a way for us to be able to augment, to hold classes, to be able to use digital humans to show different presentations. I literally could create this room that we're in right here in spatial web, and we could potentially have a digital program for those of you who couldn't make it. I still prefer, don't get me wrong, I still prefer the us. I still prefer the heart of us together and seeing each other, right? But there are going to be ways that we can augment that as well. And how can we continue to provide you? Some people say, why don't we have a digital avatar that is your service person of Lisa or of Julie or myself or anyone else? And that digital avatar is able to answer questions for you 24/7. When it gets to a question it can't answer, hey, listen, we've got this question. It could just be a service bot. There's all sorts of different ways that this new digital web human, I'm going to call it human interaction with VR and spatial web digital humans. It's all crazy to see, but they're actually also selling digital objects. Like in the real world, people want to keep and collect things when they're precious. So there's billions of dollars, $2.2 billion or something going on with transactions of virtual things. And this is crazy. I never would have thought it, but Roblox is coming public. It's one of those companies that is actually in this area for kids and gaming, and kids are buying stuff back and forth on it and spending real money on it. Let me go through as well. Education, like I said, you may never graduate because you're always going to be needing to learn. We talked to Jeff Wilke, who's the CEO of Amazon, and I'll concatenate that to something short. Being the CEO of Amazon worldwide for 20 years, he said, what did you learn from Jeff? Jeff taught me about thinking big. It's craziness, but it says that's the biggest thing that he taught him. We also talked to Mark Benioff, who is the CEO of Salesforce, the biggest customer relations management software in the world. And he says, you've got to operationalize your values, have a beginner's mindset at all the time, and be a square one company. Both of these companies say you get big and then you have all these layers and then you and you view that you make all sorts of decisions without going out and finding what customers need. He goes, you got to remain at square one every day. And every year he puts down a piece of paper and says, what's important to me now? And then he makes sure that he says, what are the steps I can do to do something about that? So it's an amazing piece if you go to have that beginner's mindset and be one of the biggest companies in the world. But I saw two of these people. We got to talk with them as well. He says we have to let go of the past other than for learning and perspective. That's one piece that he said as well. So the place where these technologies, in my opinion, the place where these technologies intersect is even more crazy. Bitcoin, blockchain, material science, sensors, computing power. What should we do with this? And here's a question I have for you. What might your family, your life, or your work look like in 1, 5, or 10 years? Think about it. What are we to do if all of this technology, will it change? Will it disrupt your industry? Will it eliminate it? Will it enhance it? I think the answer to all of these could be yes. So what I want to do is explore this. Now, for most of us, what can we do about this? We can be more human and more right brain centric. What does that mean? We're orchestrators and artists. That's something that computers can't do. They can do figments of it, but they can't ideate and create and orchestrate like we can. Continue for your children and grandchildren and yourselves to work on the right brain side of the equation, the creativity, growth mindset, adaptability. These are very important and only going to be more important in the future as these kind of technologies become pervasive in our society as well. And I would say this is where true human qualities lie. And I'd say the biggest piece is be ready for the future because it's coming faster than you think. Be ready for the future because it's coming faster than you think. So I think as I go through this, I'm going to set up something here, and I have a couple of ideas as well. I have a trillion trees project that's occurring. If we were to plant 1 trillion trees, so we've got some entrepreneurs, and I think now some political organizations are on there as well. If we plant 1 trillion trees around the world, we will be back to pre-industrial ages for our environment. That's not such a hard thing. So what we're looking at is how can we do that? So we're looking at joining with some of you and others. Maybe over this next year, we'll just find some places to plant trees. Let's just see what we can do to help the environment if it's going to be something we're all going to live in for a very long time. So these are the kind of things we're going to look towards just as a organization, if you will. It's not our day-to-day focus, but when we have the charitable side of the equation, when we have time outside the business, those are things we're going to look at. We want to put our ethos and our beliefs and yours together to affect the world in some great way. So little things like that may make a big difference if we all do it. We might do some VR. Actually, really funny. In 1994, Bryant Gumbel had this thing about the World Wide Web. What is it? Worldwide.what.com? I mean, what does this at thing mean? Is that an at symbol? What am I? It was funny to see on TV, but you go back and say, that's what they're talking about for the spatial web right now. That's what Bitcoin was 8 or 10 years ago. It's amazing. What I want to do, if I may, if you'd like to explore these technologies and their impact further, I'd like to have a discussion group, aside from this, of people who are interested in learning more and putting their ideas and some thoughts into how we can work with this and what we need to do to be careful with the approaches of it. So if we want to have a conversation about virtual reality, want to have a conversation about augmented reality, just a group that wants to explore these things maybe even a little bit deeper, and then more importantly, the impacts of what they may be. How might we be able to use them? How do we have to be careful about how they might disrupt us? It's a fun group, and I think it'll be a group oftentimes we'll maybe just get together in a Zoom room or when we can get together in person. If you'd like to be interested, and if you would be interested in that, feel free, let us know. You can put it in the poll, send us an email or something as well, because I think some of these have a whole lot more behind them I haven't really told you about. Again, I've just in about 2 hours, unfortunately, I apologize. I took a little more time than expected, but there are hours and hours and hours of stuff behind this and stuff I don't know. And your opinions and your experience are incredibly valued to this. You bringing into this kind of equation can say, hey, Chris, I'm really not concerned about that, but I'm concerned about this that you brought up. Whoa, I didn't even expect that. That's a great point. That's where we learn from you. That's where our communication, this could be very valuable. So how can this benefit you? How can it benefit your family? What do we need to teach our children and grandchildren to be aware of and spend more time in? Probably not the left brain rote activities that can be handled by a machine, but the creative human things that are going to be heavily valued in our society. So again, that's what I'll say today for our download. Peter, with any questions, anything to address? Anybody have any questions here as well? No? So what I want to do as well is I want to thank you tremendously for the time that you've offered to us here today. Again, we are here to help you retire. The question I'm married to is, how can we help retirees more? How can we help you with your retirement more? You know, my life purpose is to help retirees really thrive and finish strong, if you will. And it's going to be both planning it. How do we plan retirement well? How do we live retirement well? And how do we give away what we have? Because ultimately, we're going to have to give away, even if we have 1 cent, we're going to have to give it to somebody. Our relatives, charities, the government, long-term care facility, those are all kind of some inevitables. So we want to make sure we're here to support you in all of those decisions, not only in planning for it, but in living it and also giving it, just being a resource to you in all of those. So that's what we want to do. That's what we are at Gentian. So when you talk to people about Gentian retirement, we are Gentian. We are Gentian retirement. We help you plan it. We help you live it. We help you give it. That's what we're here to do. The whole team is keyed up on this as well. And please, we appreciate you. We appreciate your resources. We appreciate all the introductions you're giving to us as well. We really have had a wonderful, wonderful year, and we appreciate the people that you send to us. You've made this practice what it is. We know the awards are yours, not ours. We're simply going to be the guides to you. So when we say there's an award, we understand it's your award. You should be proud of it. So thank you tremendously for all you do for us. Thank you for the team. Thank you for everybody who put this together. Thank you for your time and attention. And let me see, I saw one question there before I run. Excellent. Good. Thank you, Keith. We'll make sure we got Peter with that as well. And Lori. What of the ideas talked about today will put millions of inner city residents to work? Actually, many of the ideas will as well. It's going to be in training. It's going to be in democratizing this. Here's a beautiful thing. Lori, great question. A lot of what I'm talking about, they're looking to democratize and basically reduce the expense of so that it's available to everyone. so that if you're illiterate or you can't type something in, you can speak it in. So a lot of the technologies we're talking about are going to be are available to those who don't even speak the full language or speak a different language, but you can actually have it applicable to you. They're trying to reach everybody on earth, not just the elite. Some of the health things and others, it's going to be for the elite right now, but all of the physicians I talked about with vaccines and other protections are looking to make what happens cost almost nothing. That's their goal. That's what they all hope for. So at any rate, I appreciate both of those questions. I think as you look at this, how can this help society? We think in many ways. How can it hurt society? I think in many ways as well. We have to be super careful about this. Thank you again for your attention. Thank you for being clients, or thank you for tuning in today. If you're watching this later on, send us anything that you'd like to. We appreciate your time. We value it. We appreciate the ability to be your advisor, or advisors, I should say, as well. And please let us know anything we can do to help you. From Chris Doty here at Gentian Financial, with our end of our Winter and Technology Forum, if you will, 2021. Have a great rest of your Wednesday, and I look forward to speaking to you more about this in person.